Reveille.
Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita?
Yes!
My God!
It's us doing what we love. It's time to bang.
Player haters, masturbators, MKers, welcome one and all. It's time for Morning Kombat on this, I think, 11th of November, 2024.
Yeah, happy Veterans Day for you.
Oh, now you realize
yeah,
it.
11/11, bitch.
There we go, about time. I will
Yeah.
accept. Got a bunch of Osama bin Ladens in this goddamn audience here.
Wow.
But how you doing, everyone? I am merely one half of your hosting duo. My name is Luke Thomas. I join you, normally from Washington, D.C. We're here in our New York City studios in Meadowlark Media, joined by the King of Connecticut. He has many other designations, but the legal name, Farty McFartfart.
Yes, yes.
Brian Campbell. How you doing, Brian?
I'm
You're a little salty this
I'm
morning.
a little salty this morning. Yeah, I can't really put my finger on it, but get ready, okay? Bite down, buckle up.
Did you have problems sleeping this weekend?
No.
No, sleeping was okay.
Sleeping was
All right.
yeah.
Getting into any fist fights with the neighbors?
Mm-mm.
No.
Love my neighbors. I'm just gonna power through. All right.
All
We're
right.
just gonna, maybe it's because
I'm a little on edge because of this. if I can be honest.
Wow. Maybe it's because we have two massive freaking combat sports like pay-per-view-ish type events, one night after another. And as we were talking about off camera, I'm more worried about the results of the main events of both in terms of like not only not living up to the entertainment expectations, but the potential fallout expectations when we bring in John Jones on there, that I'm just sort of like, yeah, it's a big week, but like, what the fuck is going to happen?
I will say this. This is true across the board. We have two excellent co-main event rematches this weekend, which both of them are pretty great. Neither are
Yes.
perfect, but I don't really have any complaint about
For
either
the
of those.
hardcores, right?
For the hardcores. Both
You're
on
right.
the Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor 2 card, co-main event on the Paul Tyson card, and then, of course, the rematch between Chandler and Oliveira on the UFC 309 card.
And-
Gotta say, both of those, I'll take it. I'll take
Okay,
it.
and it was a pretty fun weekend of boxing, which is my favorite sport. So maybe I should bring it back in here.
Yeah, I
and
gotta say,
find
there
some
was.
happiness.
I agree with you that actually more concerned that it would be a hug fest,
Yeah.
right? Because you can be stupid, you can't be stupid and boring. That's the one thing you can't do. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Okay.
So 'cause remember, the Nate Robinson fight was really ridiculous, and for as long as it lasted, but then he knocked the gold coins out of him. Bah!
Yes, he did.
So it was all same dude. People forget this. The second Jake Paul Tyron Woodley fight was
Horrendous.
terrible.
Yes, horrendous.
Up until he landed that ridiculous thunderous KO, and then everyone's like, "Oh, it was a great KO."
Maybe Boney's just pissing me off a lot lately. Maybe that's my issue. you know?
He's doing a lot of talking these days about.
I'd
things
like to
that-
talk to him on Instagram, but he doesn't allow that to happen anymore.
Let's bring in our third member here of the crew, so to speak. He is a degenerate gambler, but a pretty good one at that.
Who has merch this week?
He does have merch.
Yes.
That's true, guys. Merch is out. Maincardminute.com. Go Cops.
It's Long Island Luke. How did the betting go on Saturday?
Betting went good. Only bet we missed was the main event. We had the over 1.5 that did not hit, but we ended up doing a little bonus boxing, hit both of those bets.
Oh.
Pretty good week.
All right.
I will say this, if I may, about this coming weekend. We're going to talk about it. I think, and we already knew this, right? I'm not saying anything like revelatory, but it's just kind of one of those weeks where you notice it. This Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight is going to be massive because I have friends who are asking me about it who I know don't care about combat sports.
To be fair, are these the same friends who may or may not have ran a train back in the Marines?
No. These are nerds.
Okay.
Quite the opposite.
Fight nerds,
No, not even the good kind.
Okay.
The Washington D.C. kind.
Yes.
The kind who are like, that drink in the words of Doug Stanhope, the kind that drink a Diet Coke for pep and think baseball is edgy.
Yes.
Like that kind. And they're like, "Are you going to be watching this Mike Tyson Paul?" And I'm like, are y'all going to watch this? They're all like, "We can't wait." I'm like, holy shit, man. Did I tell you this? My dad asked me last week,
No.
following the election, I swear to God, my dad goes, "Hey, do you know who Joe Rogan is?" It's like, yeah, I might have heard the name a time or two, Dad. Yeah,
You're
I
like,
did.
Dad, not 5'7". He's not even close. Just wake up.
I
Dad,
have
all right?
seen people say that Joe Rogan is 5'3", And I don't know exactly how tall he is, BC. I will admit that because we didn't stand next to each other all that much. He's not 5'3".
Okay,
My wife is 5'2". He's not 5'3".
I never even thought about or considered his height in the history of my life until I was at UFC 199.
And you were on Reddit?
Backstage, and I walked through the backstage area, and he was sitting at a table talking to somebody after the event ended, and then he stood up, and I was like, oh, I never met Rogan. Let me go over and kind of linger, and then
You just stopped.
it was very similar to when I was at ESPN working, and Manny Pacquiao and Marquez were coming in that day to promote their third fight.
Okay.
And I was like so fired up, watched them a million times. But when you watch them on TV and you walk around like I do around 6'2", you just not prepared for those guys to walk in and be like 5'3". You know what I mean? You're
they're
just
not-
like, holy
Short
shit.
stack.
Yeah,
Short
it was
stack.
just like that. But hey, shout out to. But here's my question. And in 309, will they let DC interview Boney afterwards? I know that's Joe's job,
I
but
thought
that
about
would
that.
be theater if DC, especially if DC's like, what are you going to do next, John? And then like how he fields that reaction. Hey, UFC, if you're listening, because you'll probably try to ban something from Have You Seen This shit coming up after the show ends, and then we'll have to take it down for a while. Please let that happen. Thank you.
I was also wondering this, and I'm being dead serious. Obviously, it's not politically necessary anymore. Do we think Trump makes an appearance? Is there a prop bet on that? Is there a prop bet on that, Long Island Luke?
There probably is. I think he's going to get the famous Trump walkout.
You think so?
Yeah. I
Okay,
do.
will it be with like the full brigade, Tucker Carlson, Kid Rock, Hunter Campbell?
Well, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know how that would work.
Because Kid Rock did say publicly that he was going to leave the country if Trump lost the election.
He
So
did.
I guess he's staying. I guess he's in. You know?
One of the many downsides. All right. With that in mind, let's remind everyone we've got socials. Throw up the social graphic. Look at you got TikTok, you got IG, you even got YouTube handles. You got the Brian Campbell Experience. It's the Brian Campbell Experience or just Brian Campbell
I
Experience?
don't even know at this
I believe
point.
it's the.
You know, I just show up sometimes, turn the camera on,
There
but
you
no,
go.
it is the Brian Campbell.
And of course, Luke Thomas in various different ways, none of which are consistent across various platforms. That's what they say really matters when you're not consistent and people can't.
Yeah, when you
use the
don't know
same
your own
one.
name and you stole it from somebody else.
That's
it's
really
just a
good.
Real,
It's really
the way
good.
to go.
And then, of course, we do have merch, Morning Kombat. Store.
Do we really, Luke?
So it's
I'm wearing
it's
it.
like it's like Schrodinger's merch. Like if you don't
Schrodinger?
actually look into it, it probably is still there. But I got this jacket. You've got the hoodie and the hat.
Yes,
technically that
I'm
are merch.
representing right now.
And that's it. All right. Well, we see if you want to get started, we can get started. Boy, I got to tell you, I can see on your face.
Low T
No, quite the opposite. Maybe high T rage.
against the machine.
Against the
possibly?
machine,
Yes,
possibly. I can tell there's a little something extra.
Yeah,
to you these
yeah, I
days.
just got it out. There we go. All right.
All right. With that in mind, let's get topic number 1 going. UFC Apex 100, whatever you want to call it, was over the weekend. The UFC, returned to the Apex with, on paper, a card that was not full of a lot of interesting fights, but I think it did deliver some pretty good action along the way. But most importantly, in the main event, Carlos, and this is how they called him on the broadcast, Prates.
Yeah, Carlos Prates. Yeah.
Carlos Prates, that's what I'm going to repeat. I'm going to repeat what they said in the broadcast. Because
Are you getting the feeling that people don't love that you preamble and then pick the hardest way to pronounce it and try to like?
So
stumble
here's the
through it?
thing. I had on the phone, a Brazilian person tell me it was Prates. Like that's what they told me over the phone.
Yes.
But then I come to find out it's like other Brazilian speakers. I'm like, well, that person's from that area of Brazil. That's how they say it, but that's not necessarily how the rest of Brazil says it. And I'm like, okay.
I had that same problem with the one broadcast. Suddenly it's Umar Khan and he's Rug, and I was just on the I was on the outside.
I thought it was Rug.
Yeah.
You know. All right. Either way, Prates scores a KO in the waning seconds of the very first round in this contest, easily defeating Neil Magny. And I have a bunch of thoughts on this, BC, but let's go to you first. This is his 4th fight this year, Carlos Prates, his 4th win, his 4th KO, all in the calendar year, and I looked it up. In fact, it is true. He had 1 KO for every quarter of the year. He did it in every single quarter. A phenomenal year. Is this now the win where we can say he's a legit contender in the welterweight division?
Yes, absolutely. And I was so late to the process. I was actually happy that some MK fans were like, hey, I think you guys, no-sold to some degree what this main event was going to bring in terms of excitement and the potential of storylines coming off of it. And I do apologize for that. Maybe it was sort of the fatigue of where the Fight Night main events have gone so far. But Carlos Prates proved once again that he is must-see TV, an absolute firecracker in there. We know about his lifestyle outside the cage. It seems to align with a lot of our own principles here inside the studio, if you know what I'm saying. But 4 KOs, 4 appearances, and he just goes in there against the number 15 guy who happens to be the winningest fighter in the division's history. And in every possible way, the litmus test of whether you're coming or going, how do you look against Neil Magny? Oh, he looks fantastic. Luke, I had to rewind it a lot. And it was finally seeing that one angle, that Shaw, that looping punch come right over the hand of Magny and just kind of tap him on the temple. Luke, is that just sort of like perfect spot to detonate the bomb? Because it looked for a while like he didn't even touch him. And then you see that, and it shows you with glancing power what this guy can be. Obviously, he's gone 2 or 3 rounds in the past, and he's had a lot of runs around the regionals. I didn't even realize he fought 1 championship back in the day. But what matters is this version of Prates now. We don't know what it looks like from rounds 2 to 5, to be fair with him. But what we see right now, get this guy a ranking and get him a live body with a name and a number next to it, because he's coming on fast, he's appearing often, and he makes fun shit happen. I think just that finish, just the way it happened, shows you there's some next level power in there, because Magny doesn't go down easy. And like I said, I had to really find out where that contact actually took place. Did you have that same issue?
At first, yes. I did. I was like, where did he land on it? And then I saw the replay and I saw his ear wiggle from the punch kind of glancing off of it. And then I was like, oh, so I went back and I watched it, and it landed kind of like right back here, or like on the other side of this headphone a little bit.
No, I thought it hit on the temple. It grazed him on the temple.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Above where my headphone is at, kind of like this area here. And it was dramatic. I mean, BC, 2 things really stood out to me. One, which we already knew but was confirmed, namely the power. He has he has the kind of power that can change a round or end a fight, right? He has fight-changing power. He's very good about finding his range. That's one sort of thing. You always kind of see him in a range, even though he had those short elbows in close as well. I do mean his punches, though. He has a good sense and enablement of range. But BC, how about this? 0 for 7 Neil Magny on takedowns. Not suggesting that Neil Magny has the best wrestling in the division, but this was all about what? Can he pass this Neil Magny test?
Exactly.
And Neil Magny did his, I don't know, job or responsibility, but the reason why he was brought in was to see if Prates could answer for some of these other dimensions, and he went right for the takedown right away, as a matter of fact. He got 1 minute and 31 of control time, but that's just for where they're jockeying for position. He never got the takedown. He whiffed on all of them. Prates looked, for the most part, I would say, pretty good defending them. And then at range, it's just really a matter of time once he catches you.
And you know, I love when guys are not fully formed or finished when they get to this level. Like the things we don't know about Prates only makes the journey of following him, as he now will step into a ranked spot and get higher level competition. I think it makes it even more intriguing, because of course you want to see him in a 5-round fight to see where his stamina is at and whether he's, far away from championship form or close. But Luke, we may not find that out for a while, because that power, that accuracy, that intention seems so real. Were you disappointed that we didn't get to see him abuse substances in the cage afterwards in celebration, keep it a hundo, of Apex 100?
That, and I saw this joke going around on Twitter the day of the fight where they had taken what looked like the design of a carton of Marlboro cigarettes and then put that over the 2 thighs of his shorts.
Marlboro, yes.
And I know that won't happen. There's no way, but this just kind of tells you this guy's already got an identity beyond what he does in the cage. By the way, don't forget, his English is a little bit broken, but pretty good.
Yes.
There's a lot of interesting ingredients about him, between the smoking, the drinking, the style, the ability, the ability to speak English, that all kind of are working together. And this is why he's surging. Yes, he's doing really well in terms of his fight results. Those are all very, very good. As I mentioned, 1 KO a quarter doesn't really get much better than that in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But the fact that he can speak English and he's got this other kind of edgy, fun identity, there's a lot to like about Carlos Prates.
I love the irreverent side of this game, and I don't mean to break everything down to like a fighting video game. You know how a lot of fighting video games have that like taunt button that no one uses, where you can like call the other person on and kind of like, do whatever. Do you think, like, because we're developing personalities in the UFC where people have finishing sequences that they go to, and I don't mean finish to finish the fight. I mean when they win. Demopoulos jumps in the arms of the interviewer. Eileen Perez twerks and shakes it.
Yes.
Like we've got, you know,
she shakes that ass.
Right. Like
Yes.
some people jump over the cage, some people backflip. We've seen a few of those things. What about for Prates, if I could be his PR manager for a second? We allow him under UFC rules that if he wins, we bring in this giant wheel. We used to do the Wheel of Death on here until the UFC weigh-in show stole it, after we stole it from other people. And it's the Wheel of Sin, and we get to spin it during his post-fight interview, and whatever vice comes up, he gets to perform that in there. So they need to have on ready alcohol, cigarettes, weed, BBLs, and
Boars,
just, you know, a grill with steaks. Because, you know, in the Apex, there's not much going on there outside of like Paul Anka sitting there alone with.
What would you say is the likelihood he's paid for sex before?
I didn't think, wow. I mean, was he a U.S. Marine? I didn't think this was going to fall. By the way, happy U.S. Marines birthday yesterday.
That was yesterday, but thank you. Yes.
What year are we in this
I
relationship?
forgot the number. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Jokes aside, Luke. Jokes aside. We mentioned what we don't know about him. Are you feeling like this guy's a top 5 guy waiting to happen?
I will say this. First of all, I wanted to ask kind of like a sub question about like the fighting nerds, which he is of this team. They are just demolishing in the UFC. Someone asked me if they're one of the top teams in MMA. They certainly are. And the year that they had makes them Gym of the Year. Listen to this. Give
me the roster.
This is all-time UFC records. Kyle Bahalio, 7-0. Carlos Prates, 4-0. John Silva, 3-0. Mauricio Hufi, 1-0. He fights this weekend. In a fight he is favored to win. We shall see.
Mauricio date rape drug? Is that his nickname?
Oh, Roofy? Well, it reads like Mauricio Ruffy in English.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Turns out his nickname's GHB. Who would have thought? You know what I mean? Yeah.
But it's Hoofy because it's Portuguese. Anyway, and then Bruna Brazil, who's 2-2, but nevertheless, that's the worst of it, and she's still 500. They're kicking so much ass, literally and figuratively. I will say this. I don't want to diminish anyone's enthusiasm after he passed with flying colors the Neil Magny test. There is so many reasons, as we just articulated, to be really excited about him. However, obviously the challenges go up from here. Leon Edwards would be a much tougher fight. JDM would be a much tougher fight.
Didn't he call out Jack?
He might have.
He called him Jake, though, but he called him out twice, yes.
Yes, but also, you're getting to a different stratosphere of capability as he moves on from here. And so I think we'll begin to see some of the limits of his game. But certainly, I think the takeaway from the weekend is, do you have good, legitimate reasons to get behind this guy and be excited about his future? No question at all.
Yes.
Zero.
Get him a T-shirt on the UFC store. I'd wear it right now.
BC, let's stay with the card for a minute if we can. And it's Rainier.
So he told me on the phone, I used to interview him, that it's Rainier. Rainier
They were calling him Rainier
They
on
were
the
effing
goddamn
it
broadcast.
up. They were effing it up.
All right, we're going to stick with Rainier. Rainier de Ritter, he did score a third-round submission finish of Gerald Meerschaert. Bit of a back-and-forth fight, I think is a good way to put that. However, it was a sometimes sloppy affair. Did he prove he's a top 10 caliber fighter with this win?
Ish. Top 10 caliber.
In the middleweight division, 185.
Meaning that, like, he ultimately got the result he wanted, or maybe that we wanted, if we could see the high end of him and see what he could bring to the UFC's middleweight division. I think there were questions about him cutting to 185 for the first time in a handful of years due to the one rehydration system that they have there, where you're basically a light heavyweight fighting at middleweight. But I think the biggest thing he failed in this test, if you will, against somebody who's not considered a great striker in GM3, is where was the head movement / defense / anything. It was as if he was just willing to stand there and take whatever punishment he needed to get into the position to try to set up the type of finish that he ultimately got. Luke, tell me if I'm wrong. We saw some intoxicating grappling back and forth. He's going to bring that to the table. He's super confident. He dyed the hair blonde, which is interesting. He's coming in there with a lot of swagger. But as good as the win was, and as good as you can say, yeah, could he beat top 10 guys? Yeah, I could see that. Luke, I asked you that question on Friday's show, whether, is his stand-up anywhere close to the quality of his ground game? No, we knew that coming in. But it's one thing to say somebody doesn't have a great stand-up, and it's another thing to say, I don't even think he's attempting to block or move away from punches. He's just willing to eat that. It's not going to last. You're not going to last with that. And we've seen him get crushed before, moving up and fighting Malikan, of course, and losing twice to him. But I don't know if I can get past that.
Let me throw a proposed fight at you. See what you think. He just won, right? We just had Rich Franklin on.
Yes.
And I mentioned to Rich,
not an ace hole.
Not an ace hole. And I had mentioned to him that his record of beatdowns in the middleweight division over David Loazo had just been broken by Anthony Hernandez.
Sure.
Renier de Ritter versus Anthony Hernandez. Now remember, Hernandez has a go and a motor like nobody else. Good submission defense, good submission attacks. Remember, subbed Vieira, right, which was like a fucking mind-blowing at the time. What do you think of that matchup?
Oh, I mean, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see how the ground games match up against each other, but isn't that the same equation I'm sort of pitching back to you of like, I can't get over the fact, and I love RDR. I've interviewed him a bunch of times in his one days. I think I like the way he looks at the game. But were you as alarmed as I was, Luke, that there wasn't even like I don't want to say an understanding. He wasn't making it a priority at all with the punch defense. I mean, and like, dude, that's not going to work at this level. It's just not against anyone past, I mean, can you beat guys from 10 to 15? Is there wins you can get at this level? Sure. What do you think was that? Was that more of just nerves coming into the UFC, or is that a continuation of he doesn't prioritize that? His game is to get you to the ground. We all know that coming in. But you're not even going to get to that point if you employ that type of style out there.
I think he's big for the weight class. He looked it. He
got gassed. Let's be fair.
He got really gassed. He went for 13 takedowns. He scored 5 of them. Now, in fairness, I kind of look at the other metric, which is how many did you get each round? And he got a takedown in every round. 2 in the first, 2 in the second, and 1 in the third. He obviously closed the show in the third. I share your concerns. His balance is weird. Like, guys who are good about grappling, and about, in particular, good about grappling from guard position, will sometimes fall off their feet and then just accept it because now they can feel like they can immediately transition into guard play.
Oh, so they kind of go with the punch. They kind of let it land and go with it and move.
Or they won't hold themselves in some kind of, very balanced position because they're just not super worried about the consequences of what it means to go to that. And I think that's, in modern MMA, a tragic mistake. I really think it's a bad idea. That seemed to be a problem with him. Also, the head movement, I certainly agree. Just not a lot of effort in terms of striking defense. Gassing was kind of bad. Some of these things I definitely think are the product of fighting here this time in this way for the UFC. So we'll see how much it continues.
And it's not like I didn't have these concerns in one. He just, for the, of the film I saw and the fights I watched, had success dragging people down and getting right into that. I mean, would you say his ability to take people to the ground is super elite on the level of his submission skills, or even that delayed drag down takedown attempt? Is he going to have problems with that on this level?
So I actually feel like those, when he gets the body lock and he can't get the double, and then he switches to he hooks the leg and then pulls them in a circle.
And he commits all the way.
That's actually like what more modern takedowns are going in MMA. So I actually feel like he's in good shape for that.
Okay.
So that part is great. And on the floor, again, I think he's a little too willing to concede position because he feels like he has attack there. The thing for me that I think everyone has to keep in mind with Renier de Ritter is there is no doubt in my mind he can beat top 10 guys. And that is not in any way a contradiction to say he can also lose to somebody viciously outside of the top 10. He doesn't have a lock on it because of some of these issues you've identified, whether it's gas tank, whether it's defense, whether it's a willingness to attack from certain positions. Corey Sandhagen had the same problem for a while where guys would lift him off of his feet and he'd start playing guard, and it's like, dude, you got to get out of there.
Sure. Unless
you've got a Charles Oliveira type guard. And in fairness, de Ritter has a very good guard, but I just feel like that instinct is going to make just falling over like that. And it's happened multiple times in the fight, or like a failed Uchimata that didn't work. He just slides off like someone flicking a booger off their finger. It's just a bad look.
Well, not everybody's going to take that bait, and he's not going to have success taking down everyone. So then it's automatically going to fall on what can you do in the stand-up. And again, like we've seen guys with limited stand-up be able to hang or use their stand-up the best they can. Think of the evolution Habib made to service what they want to do on the ground. But I don't know. I got more questions than answers coming off of this win. And coming in, I'm an RDR fan who wanted what does he call himself? The Dutch Knight?
The Dutch Knight, yes.
Instead
of the Dark Knight?
Yeah, I mean, are you still in, when he said coming in, when he signed, he said, look, I want to fight Bo Nickel. Are you in on the idea of him fighting the winner of Bo Nickel, Paul Craig?
The problem is, it's like de Ritter is a better version of Paul Craig. I don't know if he's a radically different version. I don't know what the point of doing those back-to-back would be. Let me read you some names here at middleweight. Tell me if you think de Ritter can beat them, okay? Michel Pereira.
Yes.
Bullet Magomedov.
You know what? That's a hell of a fight.
Okay, as long as that fight stays on the...
That's a hell of a fight.
On the feet, he's going to get tuned up. On
Yes.
the ground, he's a dangerous
But
threat.
they both have, to be fair, donkish qualities.
They definitely both have donkish qualities. Then 13, Anthony Hernandez. I think Hernandez is a horrible fight for him.
I agree with you on that. Oh, I think Hernandez will gas him out too.
Paulo Costa.
No, Costa will knock him out.
Costa would knock him out, I
Yep.
think. And then there's Delidze. That's a little bit more back and forth because styles.
Yeah,
make
the
fights.
contrast in the styles will make that, but I could see him getting stopped by.
But then you
Delidze,
go
too.
up the list: Brendan Allen, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vittori, Caio Bajalio. It's like, could he win one of those? Maybe he could win. Maybe the Brendan Allen one he could win, for example. But like I just read you names well outside the top 10. Fluffy Hernandez at 13. That's a horrible matchup for him.
Yes.
This is what I mean. He can beat top 10 guys and easily lose to top 15 guys. No problem.
Okay, what do you make of him gassing out so badly? Was it because they both committed so aggressively to not just grappling, but to constantly adjust on it, reverse? I mean, there was a lot going on that was using up that gas tank. Or was it potentially tied to the idea that he's making 185 now where he didn't physically have to in the past?
Yes, I think the fact that he has to make 185, he looked enormous for this weight class.
But he looked like sucked. I mean, he looked like
Yeah, he had that Elon Musk bird chest kind
so,
of thing going on.
So I guess those are the seeds for a question of, do you think he'd be better at 205 where he'd be facing heavier hitters, but he may have more physical resources?
I think we'll eventually see him up there. People as the age are just going to move up there.
Sure.
And again, go back to combat sports.
Well,
this is a world where we ask you to drain 20, 30 pounds off your
Yes.
body and then perform maximally. You're not going to.
We're asking Kayla Harrison to do that at bantamweight, for example. But I wonder if, light heavyweight is a lot more narrow of a pool, a lot less overly skilled guys compared to middleweight. I wonder if he could have better success there. But hey, it's one fight in. He got the win. I don't mean to put so much negative on him. He did what he was supposed to do and pass the test against a guy who could have solved him if he wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I just can't get past the mindset of watching him strike defense like this.
How
and
about
just
going for that Darce underneath and then like slipping out and then reaching for it like someone ascending to heaven and you're trying to pull them back or something? I was like, that is a bad look,
Yes.
But
But that was his fight, and the storyline surrounding him was one of the highlights of this card that I thought was very weak on paper, and I thought played out pretty weakly.
I just think this. Is he an exciting addition to the middleweight division, potentially to your point, 205? There's no question. I'm happy he's here, and ultimately getting the dub, getting the finish, very important because GM3 is going to be hard to sub.
Sure.
Tons of problems. I don't know if he'll be champion. I feel like there's plenty of reasons to suggest not. But I do think when you see his name on the roster, on a card, it's going to be against somebody good, and he's going to have a legit shot every time, and either way, it's going to be fun.
I'm not against...
I like it.
I always fall in love with sluggers, which is the opposite of RDR, but it's the same principle. I'm not against flawed people who can beat anybody at any given time. Is that why I love Brian Ortega so much, or is it his DM and female history? You really are going to have to ask yourself that question in the mirror at the end of the day. But either way, the sexiest division right now is middleweight, and we've got yet another major player to this, so this is not a bad thing.
BC, before we move on from this, anyone else on this card worthy of a shout-out or otherwise had a good performance?
How about Damon Blackshear running
I was
through
surprised.
Cody Stamann?
Yeah, like the way it went. Not that he won, but that it was like fairly straightforward.
Now, Cody's lost 3 in a row. He's lost 6 of his last 8. He's in his late 30s. We have to be realistic of that.
Still,
but
he's a very quality
there was,
fighter. Yes.
command in that. I mean, did you like Denise Gomes in the featured prelim? That it took her the distance against Carolina, but she proved that she's making gains, or you didn't even watch the fight? You don't
I
give
did
a
see it.
damn?
I just didn't think much of it.
All right. Well, who else stood out for you on this card?
Trishawn Gore doing a good job of getting rid of Mackenzie Dern's significant other, Antonio Tricoli.
Yes,
that
yes.
was one-sided. Also, local dude Matthew Summelsberger getting just wiped out inside of a minute by Charles Radke. Charles Radke, who
once got sunned by Pratish.
Who did, and also got a potty mouth. Likes to say real mean things to the audience. You know what I mean?
Oh, can we shout out a couple things on this card? Who I couldn't put it in Have You Seen This shit because of the copyrights, but who was the female in the first fight that won?
Melissa Mullins.
Yeah. She had the ray gun Olympic breakdancing celebration.
Yes.
Shout out. What is it? Melissa Mullins?
Mullins, yeah.
Okay. And also Jillian Robertson bringing the 12-6 anus elbow shot to the forefront. Would love to show that video right now, but have a lot of fears.
You know, this used to be a proper segment, and then they've neutered us, and I don't know what we can do about it.
I mean, right to the damn anus.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about 12-6 to the hole? What do you think about that?
I had never thought of it until she did it, and I was like, that's got to be Can't feel great, right?
No.
No?
Long Island Luke, you ever been elbowed right to the rim? Or
No,
what?
You know he has.
Thankfully not, but
All right.
I saw that happen and I was like, oh my God, that needs to be in Have You Seen This Shit? And
Yeah.
then someone tagged us on Twitter in that clip.
Of course. That's
Someone
great
asked me,
theater.
I was like, hey, why can't someone from MK just call UFC and sort this out? And I'm like, do you know how they work? That doesn't exist.
Let me get Dana on the line.
Yeah, we'll just call them right up. They'll be very, I'm sure, happy to hear from us. All right, with that in the mind, BC. Oh, very quickly, we have Carlos Prates on the punch that put out Magny
let's hear it.
because there was some questions about its authenticity.
What would you say to people that
I think they should come here and let me give a punch on his head, and then after they can talk.
because a lot of
It's a fair point.
That is a fair
It's a
point.
very fair point. And
No,
then-
but really, the last fight that I remember that I had to slow it down and watch it a million times was the jab that Kimbo got knocked out from Seth Petrozelli. Remember that sort of
Yes.
chopping, like,
but it was a hard one, yeah.
yeah, as Kimbo was lunging forward.
Yeah.
But it was sort of like, remember at first you were like, what happened? And then you're watching it and watching like, oh, okay. So it had to be the perfect shot on the perfect spot at the right time.
Also, if you've just got great wicked power, and I feel like his punches just extend like whips,
Yes.
where it just got this pop at the end, And then very quickly, we'll talk about this later. I actually was not sure where to put this.
Sure.
you're
You're talking about RDL dropping a doogie on Chatri.
Yeah, on one championship specifically. I want to play this now. We don't have to react to it, but we will probably come back to it. But nevertheless, RDR was asked essentially about one championship. He did not have nice things to say. Roll it.
Yeah, it's been a bad couple of years. The stress I've been put through, the stress my family's been put through, to even just get fights, it hasn't been nice. And this is something. It's hard for me to talk bad because I've had a couple good years at one as well. In the beginning, they treated me well, but over the last couple of years, it's been really bad. And this is something I feel I have to do for other fighters. If you think of signing with one championship, don't. It's that simple. You should not. There's nothing there. There's no fights. You're just wrong if you do this. If you sign there, this is a bad mistake.
Do not
Damn.
come. Do not come.
Yeah, do not ejaculate.
Yes,
no, not at
wow.
all. That is a powerful clip. Remember, we
Yes.
had Rich Franklin on, I think, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, and he had said that this is still a pending legal matter. I don't know what that means or in which way it is pending. It does not appear to be pending. But for
Or
a guy
he just don't give an F.
that wasn't just some guy at one. That was the former double champ at
Yes.
one. That guy had a belt, in 2 weight classes, and that's what he is saying. We'll talk more about that when we get to one a little bit later. Topic number 2, BC. Let's get to it now. Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is this weekend. Can you believe it? Excuse me, not even the weekend. Friday. This Friday on Netflix.
What time, you know?
Long Island Luke, do you know?
8 p.m.
Is for the main card.
8 p.m. in the East. Yeah, I don't know where the prelims are airing, but Netflix is only the main card.
Okay.
Their announce team is like 27 deep. You got to give it to them.
It's an entire football team.
Yes.
Okay.
Not us, though.
Yeah, not us. We didn't get that call. Practice squad, maybe. But it is this weekend, and I would argue it's the single biggest combat sports fight anywhere happening. I know that's going to bristle some folks thinking Jones versus Stipe is bigger. I actually don't think it is. But it all kind of gets to a different kind of question, BC, which is this is what somebody has been asking me, and I actually think it's worth thinking about. What exactly is Jake Paul trying to achieve in boxing, and what does a win over Mike Tyson do to get him there?
It's weird because before this Mike fight came to fruition and we saw Jake Paul in back-to-back. Who was his most recent fight? His most recent fight
Mike Perry.
was Mike Perry. Before that, it was back-to-back prospect series main events against
Andre August, I think Paul Bouchard.
Yeah,
whatever his
against,
name is.
ex-boxers who weren't active,
Bobby
who have
Boucher.
decent records. And at that point, it was like, Jake's interviews were like, hey, I'm a year or two away from becoming a legitimate cruiserweight champion. And then the Mike thing fell back into his lap. And I think it was the right event at the right time to put Jake on the path of who he really is. The greatest celebrity crossover boxer of our time and the face of this crossover bubble that you can argue him and his brother started, and certainly Mike Tyson put a lot of air into that in 2020 when he boxed Roy Jones and came back, and Triller made a lot of money, and it was a big pandemic hit. So I think he's back on that lane and should stay on that lane. So what does this fight represent? The ultimate pinch himself, oh shit, look what I just did. I mean, look, you said it could be the biggest sport. Dude, this is the biggest sporting event of the year in combat by a mile in terms of people's attention. I mean, we'll see what
I think you're right.
We'll see what the final metrics are. Not into this. He's a daredevil risk taker, like already living the dream of who he became as a YouTube celebrity / actor / whatever else he's into at the moment. The fighting thing kind of fell in his lap. He went all in on it. And what's the biggest thing he can do? Fight Mike Tyson on Netflix? Yeah, that's probably it. So for him, even though this is a case where he's very much the favorite and we're, expecting the worst here of what he could do to Mike in a lot of ways, this is the biggest Super Bowl he could get from the idea of doubling and tripling his stardom, making a shit ton of money, doing a massive event on Netflix that everybody's mom and grandma is talking about. But I also think this potentially gets him closer to what I think is his real cash out, which is not winning, in my opinion, winning a real world title and going up against a real ranked guy, but this belief in his eyes that, like, if there's anything as big or in the same ballpark, it's fighting Canelo, which just means fighting the biggest boxing star of the moment. I think this makes that easier to happen in some ways. Canelo's getting older. He's not matching himself as aggressively. I'm not saying I want this fighter than anybody should,
Be
but
careful.
I think that Jake is just getting to a point where it's like, he couldn't say no to Mike Tyson. None of us can say no. We're going to tune in no matter what, even if we're against it or even if we're afraid or whatever. It's like the biggest cultural event he can create outside of fighting his brother, which who knows, they may pull that card one day. It's fighting 58-year-old Mike Tyson. It's fighting somebody that would bring in all the eyeballs, half the people afraid he's going to die in the ring, and the other half thinking, oh, he should be able to knock this YouTuber out, right? Which is really the selling point of this fight. So I think for Jake, it's just taking him to the end of the game. How big can he get as a crossover fighter that's bringing in the eyeballs and the money? And if we have to give Jake credit for one thing outside of being the face of this crossover bubble that's still alive, is he's bringing a lot of young fans into this. And this fight will bring in young and old all across the board. But I think it does get him closer to, like, what is his true ceiling? Is it winning a world title? I mean, could he get ranked and get an WBC, people like that, they're waiting to put him in a title fight tomorrow. I just don't think he will stay in that lane and get those requisite wins. I think he'll stay in this lane, but could this lane lead him to that giant cash out of whoever the biggest star in the moment is in boxing? Probably still Canelo in a couple of years. I think it does get him closer to that. I'm not saying I'm into that, but look, what has Jake been all about? Taking big chances, pinching himself, him and his brother, and saying, look at us. One of us is in WWE, the other one is fighting Mike Tyson. I mean, look, it's been a pretty crazy ride, love or hate Jake, that we're actually here. Like, look, from where he started, that we're actually here. This could be could this be the biggest sports event of the year? No.
No, I mean,
not
Super
even
Bowl
close to
and
that
Copa
stuff.
America final was
But
bigger
like,
than this.
we can't underestimate, to your point, what this is. So do they have a responsibility to entertain us? That's my big question.
Okay, so I want to get to that in a
that.
minute, but I think I have a way to describe what Jake Paul is trying to do. Tell me if you think this is close or not. It is not that Jake Paul doesn't care about getting some legitimacy from the legitimacy granting architecture of boxing, a belt, a world title, decent ranking. Some of that is definitely important, and some of that are things he is looking for. But what he's really looking for, what is Jake Paul trying to get out of boxing? He is trying to become the highest paid, biggest attraction in the sport of boxing, ... without necessarily having all of those credentials to do it.
Sure.
That is the goal. He wants to be the guy.
How do you cut the line? Do this.
How do you cut the line? How do you, and by the way, when we say cut the line, it's like he's creating the terms of his own line to get here. And it's weird, and I don't know if it's going to work.
That's interesting. As much as everyone's making this event about Mike, and in a lot of ways, storyline-wise, it's
the
Jake
Paul
getting
story.
to the very
So
top.
I did this thing. I didn't know much about the channel. I found out a little bit afterwards, but I did like a 5-minute segment on this channel called News Nation. It's like an 80 million homes. It's supposed to be nominally centrist. I think it's not, but neither. It doesn't matter. They had me on for like a sports segment, and I remember the producer asked me ahead of time, because sometimes they screen you ahead of time.
Yeah.
And the producer and then the host asked me the same question. They're like, "Is Mike just in this for a money grab?" And I'm like, I don't know how to answer that, lady. That's what the sport is. Like, what does that mean? Like, you're in it for the money. That's what that's all that they do. Like, I don't know how to answer that question exactly. Like, you think he's in this because he's like desperate to beat Jake Paul and some kind of like my career depends on it kind of thing? I don't think that's right. I do think he's trying to win, but yeah, of course he's trying to get paid. This is the Jake Paul story. He is facilitating a very basic need. And all right, let's be clear about this. I've said this before. How many times have you heard a Jake Paul opponent complain about their pay? Never. It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. You can hate who the guy is and call this fight stupid. Both of those things are fair to say. But the reality is when people are like, well, is Mike in it for the money? Yeah, motherfucker, that's the name of the game. What kind of a statement is that? But Jake Paul, to your point, is kind of the center, the nucleus of this entire operation. Now, if he loses and like, oh my God, if he gets viciously KO'd, well, then the whole thing is like terribly imperiled at that point. I'm not even sure what rehab would look like.
Are you suggesting that if Jake Paul gets knocked out by Mike Tyson, that his entire boxing career and ability to draw is shot and done?
I don't think that. No.
But
I think, for example, we had talked to him. When did we interview him in Florida? So that was the second Woodley fight.
Yes.
And we sat down with Jake and we asked him, like, what's your goal here? And he was like, I want to get a fight against Canelo. And both of us kind of fucking laughed in his face about it. We weren't trying to be mean, but like it was our gut reaction. It sounded so ludicrous. And I want to be clear, I still think it's pretty ludicrous, or at least it's hard to see that happening anytime soon. We'll see it on the line.
Isn't Canelo making us feel like he's getting closer to that? I mean,
okay, but Canelo would still fuck him up proper.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yes.
Like he would still.
But the point is, can Jake use this fight to become an even deeper heel and make mad so many casual fans that they will then go out of their way to follow him on pay-per-view and pay to see him lose?
Yes.
And then that's the only way the Canelo payoff would make sense.
He got the real big significant lift picking a fight with MMA.
Sure.
And he had that kind of failed attempt against Tommy Fury. But if he can pick a fight against boxing in a way, so to speak, where I'm going to like do the same model you did against the MMA guys, get the older guys, kind of washed, whatever, but still adored, big name, and then go beat the shit out of them. Do that in boxing. Now you got to play.
It's like pro wrestling heel 101. It's perfect. 101.
But this is my point. It's like, well, let's do this. Let me play a couple of assets here from Mike Tyson because he's doing, I think, I wouldn't say a great job promoting this fight, but I definitely wouldn't say a bad one. Netflix is trying to make him sound cool. They're trying to give you the Mike Tyson experience. Listen to the warning that he sends to Jake Paul.
Final thing, I presume that Mike Tyson is watching this right now. Is there anything you want to say to him?
Mike, I love you, but this is my sport now. It's an honor to get in the ring with you. I'm so honored you're a legend, but I'm going to take your throne, brother.
There's a fundamental difference between me and Jake. He's a manufactured killer. Television and papers made him a killer. He's manufactured. I'm a natural born killer. That's the difference.
I mean, it's a great soundbite.
Okay, that's terrifying.
I mean, it is, and I saw a lot of people celebrate that on Twitter. And I'm not trying to say it wasn't cool. I'm not trying to say it wasn't like an apropos summation of what's really happening here. Like, no, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul are not on the same level of toughness, any of that. That's why the only way this fight would work, and that's what Nikisa always says of MVP Promotions, and he's right. This fight only works because Mike is the sage and Jake is the young buck. But I don't know. Am I wrong to field that soundbite and go, okay, but it's not a street or bar fight? And if it was, yeah, Mike will probably eat your heart out, right? It's still a boxing match against a guy 30 years younger with size advantages and a lot going on there. So that helps sell it, Luke. But I don't know. You got to get me off of this soapbox of bad feeling for this fight. I want you to become the cheerleader for this
fight. Bad for boxing or good for boxing or neutral for
boxing?
No,
I'm not one that believes it's bad for boxing. Could it be bad for boxing? Yeah. If Mike gets flatlined and has health problems coming off of this, then it's the worst case scenario. And suddenly, even though this has very little to do with real boxing, it becomes, a poster of what's wrong with it. I think it can help boxing in some ways with the Netflix connection, which was something when this fight was announced that you were rightfully sort of on, like, what does this mean and all of that. But it's separate from that to me in a lot of ways. I don't know. I wanted you to get me off of because normally you're the cantankerous one, the pessimistic one, the realist, so to speak. I don't know why I've fallen in the sour gutter on this fight. Probably because it's 58-year-old Mike Tyson fighting, but I'm just as worried that the worst case scenario with putting a man in the ring at this age happens as I am with this being a waste of our time. I'm not trying to say a choreographed pro wrestling match that's stealing money from people. I'm not going that far. But do you think there's any silent contract, as Teddy Atlas used to say in this, or any understanding between the two of them that they're not really here to hurt each other and this could go the way of dance routine? Or should I put that behind me, get ready, and watch whatever slop in 14-ounce gloves they can give me?
I don't think you can commit to that until you see the fight itself.
Because obviously there's ways the fight's
no
fun,
way to
but
know. There's no way to know. This fight could be good for what it is. This fight could be bad for what it is. But is there some kind of silent contract, to your point, to dictate the terms? I don't in any way want to dismiss it, but we just have to see how it looks first. I think that's all I'm saying. Long Island Luke, do you have people in your orbit hitting you up about this fight?
Yeah, like random people who don't watch combat sports at all have definitely been hitting me up about it. I asked these guys back here, Nadir and Ken, who don't watch, and they said they're definitely going to tune in. So,
well, they're going to be. I mean, they're going to be high as balls.
Yeah,
yeah, naturally.
Yeah.
I did want to point out something, if I can. We have, I think, Stephen A. Smith spoke to Mike Tyson about his prep. Let's see if BC finds this at all convincing.
How much pressure, if any at all, do you feel to win this fight, even though you're twice his age and you haven't been in the ring in an official sanctioned bout since 2005? How are you feeling pressure-wise about needing to beat him?
Well, I feel in great condition. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday I box 8 rounds, and I don't know. I'm ready. I don't look at it as I'm some old guy that's decrepit going to fight this young guy. I'm fighting a guy with 10 fights. You know, he's sensational and he's hot, but I'm fighting a guy with 10 fights, and I just think I can handle this situation.
You going to knock him out?
I think I'm going to hurt him, yes.
That is trying to win me back aggressively. That is a great sales pitch for this fight. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have seen this before with Jake Paul. We were there for the Anderson Silva fight. We were like, we think Anderson's going to do it. And then he just looked old. He looked really old. I did go back and I watched the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. fight. Mike looked pretty good in that one.
That's the thing. He looked great in that. And a lot of people are
4
living
years
off
ago.
of that.
4 years ago.
Lifting off of that in their head. Now,
Yeah.
the casuals aren't because they probably didn't. Well, no, they did watch it. That fight did like 1.6 million pay-per-view buys in a dead
shit ton.
In a
Granted,
dead
it was
period.
peak COVID as well.
Sure,
so,
but
you know.
yeah, that is the right clip to get me off of this box of negativity and get me back into a position of, could this entertain the shit out of us? It could, Luke. There's a lot of permutations, by the way. Or is that the right word? Of how this could play out.
Yeah.
You know, like Mike landing one big shot and maybe it flash knockdowns Jake and it's like, oh, we're in a fight now. Anything like that is wonderful. Are we too nervous about Mike and his age?
I don't think so. He's 58.
Knowing, like, he's 58. And obviously the reference I always make, of course, I think he's on every piece of gear they ever made. Like, the Holyfield is the thing that's the problem for me. Because Holyfield was 58 when Vitor jabbed him and put him on skates, and it wasn't a fight. And we were suddenly really scared, like, just end this thing. Mike's different. He looks sturdy, but how sturdy can you be at 58? Does it play into our hands that his career kind of fell apart quickly and he was in jail as well in his prime? Like, does he have the same physical damage of somebody like Holyfield who, like, boxed at a high level till he was like 50? No. We just saw Mike 4 years ago, like, look like he could probably win this fight, right? 4 years ago, didn't he look like he could win this fight?
The guy who fought Roy Jones Jr. looked like he could win it. The big difference is, and again, that was a very diminished RJJ, but the point I wanted to say is, again, as somebody who's actually looked at Jake Paul's boxing in detail, he can punch. He can punch. Like, he can probably punch in ways that Roy Jones Jr. at that time could not.
He's also, like, I know when you broke down Jake's film, you can certainly find, because he only has 10 fights, didn't have an amateur background, blah, 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 you can find obvious technical holes. But would you say he fits within the confines of boxing fairly well in a sense where he's not out there throwing haymakers and wide open to be countered and knocked out cold? Like, for as much as his technical is not on the level of a guy with the same record who was taking legitimate fights, he's not a liability to himself in there. So even if he does get hit early, like, you think he can swim well in this end of the pool to protect himself.
Well,
you don't think so?
I mean, here's the thing. If he was actually fighting like someone halfway decent who was not like 58 years old, we would be having a very different conversation. If there is a consistent thread to Jake Paul, it is that when he gets pressured or hurried, his game crumbles very quickly. He has to really find an escape, which he usually does somewhat basically. Not that that's the biggest problem.
Dude, you're talking me back into this fight aggressively.
Well, I'm just saying, here's the thing. I have been tricked into these fights being like, oh, Tyron Woodley can knock him out. And then Woodley looked really limited, I think is the way I would put it in those fights. And then I'm like, oh, Anderson can knock him out. And then Anderson looks kind of like really old. And then I didn't expect much from Nate. So I got kind of what I was expecting. I got a little less than what I was expecting, but more or less the same from Mike Perry. And so now I'm kind of like, all right, am I really going to buy into this dumb shit yet again? Only for Mike to go out there and look like ass? I'm not sure. Hold on. Long Island Luke, tell me exactly what the fight looks like. Do the guys look like ass in this one or less so?
I don't even want to say what I'm thinking, but
Say it.
Right.
This is the show.
I think Jake Paul probably gets him out of there in the first 4 rounds.
That's probably right.
But do you think it's get him out of there with hard punches that knock him down and hurt him, or is it like that Holyfield Belfort fight where it's more of just like get the sloppy old guy out of there before he gets hurt?
I just think you have.
What do you think? Is it?
You know, I'm going to answer. Here's my answer to everything. The worst possible outcome for boxing hardcores is a guarantee, which is Mike loses, probably gets stopped, maybe not knocked out viciously, but stopped. And then he's going to use this, Jake Paul, as being like, I stopped Mike Tyson when, Razor Ruddock couldn't stop him, but I could stop him. You know what I mean? He's going to say shit like that, and people are going to be like, that's fucking true. That's our thing, guys. Look at Jake Paul. He's really good. I have a feeling that is the hell
what's
that
crazy
awaits us.
Is I really liked Rocky Balboa. Remember Rocky 6?
Is that Mason Dixon?
No.
That's Rocky 7?
No, Mason Dixon is Rocky 5.
Okay.
Antonio Tarver is Rocky Balboa, okay?
Is Mason
I'm sorry,
Dixon.
is Mason Dixon.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I screwed that up. Who was the guy he fought in Rocky 5? That's the guy I was thinking of when you said Mason Dixon.
I don't remember.
I forgot the guy's name. Okay, so it is Mason Dixon. Excuse me on that. Like, great movie from like an actual movie sense. But the thing I always had problems with, even though they presented it well with the HBO announcers and everything, is could we take the fight that actually happened there, even under the terms it was set up? Do you remember there was like a Sports Center segment where there was a video game and the current champion had to go up against the old champion Rocky, and everyone thought Rocky would beat him, and the current champion got pissed out of his ego, so he talked trash and called out Rocky to come out of retirement. And then, like, this is this fight. Tyson versus Paul is Mason Dixon versus Rocky Balboa. And even though I ultimately scored Rocky Balboa high up in my rankings of the entire Rocky and Creed series, I still feel like I'm always justifying to myself how unrealistic and absurd that is. Not just that fight took place, it was an exhibition, but that like Rocky didn't just land one big shot, he like outworked him and out hustled it. Like it was like, holy shit, and made it like a, pick 'em fight down the stretch. I've had to try to come to terms with that so many times in trying to justify why that movie is so good and believe and deserves to be high in the Rocky rankings, that I feel like I'm making the same justifications here to talk myself into much damage he takes. How long can Mike be dangerous in this fight? Like, how long are we actually talking here of what a real fight between the two of them can look? Is this like 1 round or nothing? Is it all?
Because the rounds are short, I think he can go a little bit longer. I do believe that.
So is it 8 rounds?
It's 8 rounds.
8 2-minute rounds with 14-ounce gloves. Do you think he can keep it a fight by round 4 and 5?
That's where I think it falls apart. Yeah. Okay. That's where because I think Jake's going to be doing a lot of hugging, leaning, hanging on him, making him carry his weight. He's 58. That's going to drown him a little bit. That's going to slow him down, and then he's just going to land a big punch, and we're all going to be extremely sad about it, and he's going to get fabulously wealthy.
I mean, obviously, Mike throwing the early haymakers are going to be the entertaining part, and you're like, oh my god, how's Jake going to deal with that?
All that peekaboo stuff too. He's going to do, yeah.
Damn, this is so weird and surreal. Even though we've had like a year to prepare for it in a lot of ways, it's weird. That's maybe why I'm so negative today. Is like we're getting closer to it, and I'm just like, do we really want this? Do we really need this? What the frick? At least it's free. I don't feel bad about people paying $100, bucks, $120 to see this, and it's a badass co-main, and there's some guys in the undercard you should see. All right, I'm back in on Friday, but to be honest, nobody knows what the hell this is going to look like. And there's way more ways this sucks, is gross, or is criminal than there is where we come in Monday morning fired up and like, oh my God, blah, 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 right?
I certainly agree. With that in mind, let's talk about the other fight that's happening this weekend in topic number 3. UFC 309, John Jones returns finally against a also returning Stipe Miocic. I did watch the Countdown special. You saw it as well, BC?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll talk about some of those things in a minute, but let's talk about gaming out the implications of Saturday. What ultimately are going to be John Jones's and Stipe Miocic's legacies if they call it quits after this weekend? Now, of course, that means the results can go a few different directions. Give me the universe of possible legacies here, given where we're at, if they both call it quits.
So you're positing a scenario where John, because if Stipe wins, we'd be less likely that they both would just call it quits and never fight again.
That's true. I think if Stipe wins, do they do a rematch?
Or Stipe may take the money and fight Aspinall. You never know. Like,
there's no way the UFC is going to let him. No chance.
So you think it would have to be Jones,
Dude,
Stipe
if John
too?
Jones loses via KO,
Yes.
let's just pause at that for a second.
Yes.
That is so historic and so monumental, especially because you'd be fighting a guy who walks like Cornelius from Planet of the Apes.
We don't know that for sure.
Who's 42 years old.
We do know that.
How do you, Long Island Luke, okay, if John Jones gets slept, however likely you might imagine that to be, they're doing a rematch,
You're
right?
You're right.
I think if Stipe wins in any fashion, they're doing a rematch.
Yeah, they have to.
That would fuck Aspinall and the rest of the division
So
back.
bad.
Even if the fight was awesome. And we did talk about it. I think it was a great point you made last week where it's like, will we not be talking as much or even at all about the ducking, the waiting another year, all the sort of negative things we're adding to the sticker price of this that we're sort of like, if it's a great fight, Luke, damn, then Aspinall would just have to suck it up, right? And hold that interim belt for 3 years rather than where he's at now. But your idea of like, okay, if the fight ends, John wins, they both walk away. Like if you're saying if John makes it final and says under no circumstance am I coming back, this
So
is
one
it,
thing he
you
had
know,
said
puts
was,
the gloves down.
one thing he had said was if the fight is like really tough, then that he, even if he wins, he probably might just call it a day.
So we have established based on other quotes he said too about wanting to look as perfect as he did against Cyril Gane, that the easier this fight is for John, the more likely we see Aspinall.
So hold that thought. Let me play the clip here where John talks about what would keep him in the game after Saturday. I want you to react to it when we come back.
People want more John. Is this it? Whether I retire or not will depend on this next performance. One of my main goals is to make it look really easy. And if I can accomplish that, then curiosity will keep me in the game just to see how far we can take this thing. But at the same time, I'm really happy with the career. It's been unbelievable, truly unbelievable. I work on looking in the mirror and saying to myself that I am enough, that I've accomplished enough, that I don't really have anything else to prove. Right. We can get caught up in work and just always needing more and more and more. I'm in the process of teaching myself to be proud of what I've already done and the man that I've become.
Yeah, I don't know about the man he's become, but the champion is certainly an accomplished one.
Wow, that was a deep clip and really hit on a couple ways. And so let me say first and foremost, because, you know, we've had our rhetoric related to this topic. And is this a duck if he does it and all this, you know, should the UFC even be doing this fight and whatever. But I think what he said is true, and it fits what I just tried to throw out there, that the easier the fight, the more dominant John is, the more likely he would be willing to hang around. Because when everyone sees our takes, Luke, and they did it on Instagram, and you get a lot of like UFC fanboys or John fanboys, and that's fine if you're either or both or whatever, saying like, oh, come on, guys, he's not really scared of him. And then, you know, and DC, I think, said it best too when he put out a video the other day.
I never said he was scared.
We don't believe he's scared. That's what I'm trying to say. We're not physically scared to fight these guys. I think if you're going to use the word scared, which is it's an over-aggressive word, it more comes down to, is he afraid to take the risk when he's basically pitching a perfect game right now? And knowing that with the rule changes on 12-6, that whether it happens soon or whatever, the Matt Hamill win. I mean, the UFC doesn't even recognize it as a win. Everyone refers to him as undefeated. So if he has a really hard fight with Stipe, I think you take him at his word right there, and he wins it and he survives, and that'd be even more fuel for him to be like, I'm done right now. You just saw the war I went through against the greatest heavyweight ever. What else do I have to do for you guys? But John does have a big ego, and I think that plays in. And I think you can pick through his words and kind of see that. Luke, tell me if I'm wrong. If you're the UFC, you play to his ego all the way through this process. They have been doing it. It's probably why Dana's been, you know, filleting him at all turns with the pound for pound thing and just trying to make John happy and excited about coming back and being that legend again and being that greatest and getting his flowers constantly. But Luke, I think they should do two things to keep us all happy in regards to this. One, tell John right now, don't wait for the negotiation. Don't force John, if this is public negotiating, to continue this rhetoric that he's doing that only makes him look bad or at worst a ducker and all that. Go to him and say, look, we'll do it when it's time on the official number, but we're going to pay you to fight Aspinall. So let's just get that worry off the table. We will pay you what we think you deserve as the greatest of all time, taking this risk. And number two, Luke, because he does seem to want the Poatan one. He does seem to want to add that name to the legacy. He realizes what Poatan's doing. And as we talked about, realizes that it's probably an easier fight for him. Tell him, you know what I mean? You'll get that Poatan fight next and you'll get it in a damn stadium. Like, play to his ego, in my opinion, completely, so that part is not a worry. that would help us lube this situation to lead into Saturday night, because I think people are, tell me if I'm wrong, I think people are more interested in what John's going to say on the microphone afterwards than even how he looks or whether he gets that W. Now I don't really mean that in terms of the W side of it, but like, we really want to see which direction. Is he going to go the level of taking off the gloves and do the full retirement? Or is there going to be a tease? Or is he going to straight up go from heel to baby and just call out Tom directly? Either way, UFC can get ahead of that. Make sure that, let him know that money's not the issue here, and show him the path. You win this fight against Stipe at MSG because we did wait a year for you. We allowed you. We allowed all this negativity to come because we want this fight so bad. So we're going to, if you do the solid for us with Aspinall, we're going to pay you for it like a bitch. Like a good ass bitch. And then we're giving you the Poatan fight, and it's going to be a stadium fight, and you're going to be treated the rest of the way like what you are, the greatest of all time. Like, everybody wins if they do that. They got to do everything they have to avoid him retiring on Saturday night.
You think that's right?
Business-wise, there's not the UFC. The UFC doesn't win at all. Tell me if I'm wrong. Like, is this only for one night? Is UFC willing to press pause on the division and allow all this other negativity to come in the news cycles and the media related to this fight for one night and one box office hit at MSG? Is that really what it's all about? Or is it about the idea that if we kind of give John what he really wants, maybe we can talk him into keeping going and give us all what we want? Because, Luke, even if Dana's hesitant on going to the stadium route for all the reasons we always talked about the entertainment side and all of that, his bosses seem to want to gain every dollar and cent possible at every single turn. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me that they're not, the TKO and Endeavor and Ari Emanuel aren't thinking, I know what Dana said about those screens and stuff, but think of how many people we can get in here if we do Allegiant or we do Wembley or we do something like that. John Aspinall or John Poatan, to me, are those fights that get them there. So I think it's behooved to everyone to keep John happy, continue to play to this ego. He's the pound for pound number one. He's the greatest of all time. Here, John, the key to the city. They got to do everything they can to get him to not say that. Because everyone's saying, okay, you either think he's afraid. Well, no, I think it could be a public negotiation. I think that could be what he's been doing lately.
We never
but get
said
him
he
off
was
of that.
ever afraid, and people think that's what
It's
we're
so
saying.
stupid. But like, if he's not afraid, then it really must be about negotiation, unless it's more about, I really want to control my legacy. I now have a chance to retire unbeaten, be with the Mayweather of MMA and all that.
Hold on, we should tackle this argument about being afraid just for a second. I don't want to get too far off course, but just to make the point. You have to understand, when someone is accused of ducking, could there be cases where someone is afraid of the other person? It could be, but that tends to really not be something where guys are professional fighters for a living, including those as accomplished as John Jones. It doesn't cross their mind in the sense of there's a bully in the schoolyard and I'm scared to go outside. No one with half a brain anyway thinks of it on those terms. What we think of is he's an aging talent trying to mitigate risk while maximizing reward, and he has to make a calculation about the best way to go through with that, which is why we also said we kind of understand in a vacuum why he might want to fight Poatan. Nevertheless, it's about the abdication of responsibility, not the accusation of fear. They are very, very different things.
What do you think about what I said? That it's not fear of physically fighting him.
Yes.
It's fear of what he's risking to potentially take the loss.
That is exactly correct.
Like, tell me if I'm crazy, but John has been through so much shit outside the cage and put the UFC through much that it's a miracle that he's where he's at right now. Still basically undefeated, 2-division champion, on the verge of becoming, without even a question, the GOAT, like cementing it rock underground.
Well, I don't think beating Stipe gets him very far. I want to talk about that a little bit.
But you have to believe part of John is like, holy shit, I'm here after all that shit, and I'm still doing that shit, unfortunately, year to year, and things that are compromising me. I think he more than ever wants to carefully control his exit narrative as carefully as possible. That doesn't mean physically afraid of somebody. That means, is that risk, that chance, that payday going to be worth it? Would you say he's one of the few guys that seems to value that very highly, Luke?
Yes.
In terms of how they're remembered and all that?
Yes.
Maybe that's why Dana's playing to his ego so much. And I think, again, if it is public negotiating, then Luke, he has a fear that he wouldn't get paid right.
Yes.
Why don't they just go to him and squash that now?
Okay, let me read a series of names to you and tell me if Mayweather fought them on time, early, or late. Okay? Juan Manuel Marquez.
It was a surprise that they kind of fought and they did like a catchweight thing, so I don't think neither.
Shane Mosley.
Late. Although you have to throw in the fact that Mosley could have fought him years earlier, but said he needed dental surgery.
But at the time they fought, late.
Late.
Victor Ortiz doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Miguel Cotto.
Late, but because Cotto is a legend and put forth a great performance where he won 4 rounds against Mayweather, it became on time, but at the time it was late.
Robert Guerrero.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Canelo Alvarez.
Early, but Floyd gets all the respect, all the credit.
2 fights with Maidana. Right on time,
Right
I
on
think.
time.
Yeah. Pacquiao.
Late.
Andre Berto.
Wasn't a necessary fight.
Conor McGregor.
Okay, after the fact, yes. Because
Conor
if he would have
McGregor.
fought Berto, he was going to fight Berto, but Victor Ortiz upset him. Okay.
Conor McGregor, which he fought a prime Conor McGregor, but
Yes.
not a
That
boxer,
doesn't
and then
even count.
Tenshin Nasukawa. My point is, I just read you fights that extended all the way back to 2009. He clearly game planned, with some exception, Maidana being a big one, but he clearly game planned to get fights a little bit late in terms of the guy's readiness or a little bit early in terms of the guy's readiness. Because why? Floyd didn't want to fuck up his record, and Floyd knows how to manage his career very well. Do I think Floyd is afraid of any of the guys he fought or maybe should have fought at a different time? No, but he was mitigating risk. That is what John is doing. He is mitigating risk. But this is the point I want to bring up. What does the fight have to do to make the argument for John Jones? Right now, if Stipe wins, have you really noodled what it would mean if Stipe won? I mean, the amount of chaos, because what does Tom Aspinall do? What does Poatan do? You got to run that one back.
The best part is that, like, we actually all deep inside like Stipe and have, like, no issues with him.
Yeah.
It would be freaking awesome from, like, a babyface, great story moment that we're not even considering. But, like when Pena upset Nunes and was like, what a story. What a singular moment of human conquest. Dude, this would be that, and it would fuck everything up. And
it would be
hilarious.
that plus Nate beating Conor the first time. Where, like, even if you can get it back the second time, it doesn't really matter because you still got sunned on that one night. So, like, the implications of that are fucking insane. But okay, for John, what does it need to look semi-competitive? What if it looks too competitive? We're talking all scenarios where he wins.
I see what you're saying.
All scenarios where he wins. Because here's the point.
If it was a war, he'd be a hero exiting, right?
Well, unless they both look old.
Yeah, you're right.
In which case, if they both look old, no.
Because the UFC is employing 2 heavyweight divisions right now. The active one and the old guy
You're
one.
so right. I noticed something. They have not fully abandoned it, but they are no longer calling this the baddest man on the planet kind of thing, which I think because it was stolen a little bit by PFL for Francis's
Or
sake.
because Mike's fighting the same weekend and he's the actual baddest.
But they're not really using that as a marketing gimmick anymore because how can you when Aspinall is out there and no one wants to fight him except for other guys who have nothing to lose?
How can you when you're pulling Francis's name, face, and aura from the Countdown show?
I went back and watched the Countdown show. They didn't completely pull it.
They showed it when Stipe was kicking his ass.
Stipe kicked his ass in the first fight.
But
That's when they showed
I love that they go, and then in 2021, the end of Stipe's reign
And
came.
they never show Francis's
They
face.
cut to black, and all you hear is the announcer saying, "Oh, he finished him." You don't hear Ngannou. You don't see Ngannou. By the way, you know how I sent you that tweet this morning of John Jones overnight got mad at Stipe for calling him out on the. I went back and watched on the Countdown. Didn't that seem like a fake setup where Stipe's just like,
dude, they are trying.
And you'll find out. Bitch.
Yeah.
You'll find out.
You know, let me just explain
Bitch.
something to you. Do you not think out there in fan watching land that they were highly encouraged to do that by
Dude,
either
he looked
producers
like
or UFC?
he doesn't talk like that ever.
Ever. He doesn't. I don't think he ever thinks of John in that way.
No.
They had to get the fucking paddles to this fight. Now,
And then
I think
John,
it'll work, but-
fell for it, and he's like,
or it's also rehearsed on his part too. Like it's all just kabuki
True,
theater.
yeah.
You can do that. I just want to point out, I think there is a world where John wins, and this fight, while helpful, doesn't really do much to actually add to the argument of whether or not he is the greatest of all time. In particular, we don't really know the answer because if Aspinall continues doing what he's doing and goes on an incredible win streak, the choice to avoid him, such that we get there, will age very, very badly for him. And the win over Stipe will age in a, again, I won't call it meaningless, but it will age on the side of having less and less meaning over time. I kind of feel like he has to put the stamp on it after it gets a little bit fun and a little bit competitive.
I hear you.
That's
So you
just
can't
enough
look
to
old.
thread the needle.
Like if he wins a war and we're like, man, that was a great fight. Shout out to John. And then he puts the gloves down and retires. You're right. It would be hard if some of us might have to go, you know what? I'm sick of asking for these guys to fight more. Maybe Canelo was right. John, go walk away. You've earned it and you deserve it. But are we forgetting this scenario? What if Stipe gets cut on a head clash in the first round and this fight's a no contest? What are we doing next?
Oh my God. Remember, I said this before. When Randy Couture fought Vitor Belfort the first time, the glove went by his ear and it nicked his eyelid,
Yes.
and it cut his, he had to get his eyelid sewn back on his face. they had to run that one back. It's like, oh my god.
Oh yeah,
dude.
where it's a KO win, but no one looks at it as a win.
Right.
Yeah.
And he has the belt, and everyone's like, oh, it's amazing. But it's like, but you have to run that one back. You know?
Didn't that happen? Oh, when Kat Zingano lost to Michelle, what's that chick from Australia's name?
Megan Anderson.
Megan Anderson. I'm sorry, Megan Anderson. Excuse me. Remember, she kicked her in the eyelid, and then it was just like weird
yes.
enough that she
Vaguely,
couldn't continue,
yes,
and it was
yeah.
suddenly a TKO.
I forgot
win.
they fought. My lord, I totally forgot they fought.
Megan Anderson.
He knew the Aussie real quick.
No, she's a good analyst. She's
she works for like I don't
ESPN
even know the sports.
She works on the ESPN side, but they've got a lot of subdivisions I don't quite understand. But neither here nor there. Let's quickly get to these last two topics if we can, BC. And again, we'll have a big preview for both Jake Paul as well as
Friday, 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, let's hit it. Yeah.
So we'll do a big preview then. All right, BC, for 1/169, this went down on Friday night on Amazon Prime Video. I'm going to ask this one very simply. How in the fuck did Rug or Rug beat Anatoly Malikin, the triple champ of the organization?
Oh, was that worst case scenario in a lot of ways? Damn.
And what does it do for his standing? I got to tell you, I saw people coming out of this being like, the fight to make, because before we were like, Francis versus Anatoly, not going to happen, but it would be fun. Now it's like Rumble in the Jungle 2. Rug versus Francis freaking Ngannou.
Dude, if I'm Chatri, given a lot of the other things we were talking about one and their financial future and all people's concerns, I'm calling up Don Davis right now, and I'm going, yeah, we're doing that in Africa. Let's do this right now. Like, stop everything. We're doing Francis and Rug.
Oh, the fight kind of sucked. It was a split decision, but he got the job done.
So here's the problem, Luke. The fight was in Bangkok. What was that, Lumpini Stadium? Because of the history with boxing, right, or kickboxing and Muay Thai.
It's one of the most hollowed institutions in Thai boxing.
You can't fight MMA in a cage there. They have the rules that you have to use the ring.
Yes.
That effed up Malikin big time because he got so many warnings and eventually got a point taken away on a yellow card from Herb Dean for grabbing the ropes. And he was always grabbing it to try to steady himself against the takedown attempts from Khan. And really that setup hurt his game big time. But how did this happen? It's because Umar Khan, Rug, not Rug, has an insane chin. And it makes me want to know more about his backstory to see what he was willing to go through against one of the bigger knockout specialists in the higher weight classes in global MMA, Malikin, who hit him, Luke, remember Malikin got to that point around round 4 where he was so gassed and frustrated, he stopped setting up any offense and he just cocked that right hand and just held out as a spear his jab and was just trying to, and dude, he was landing bombs and Rug was just like, shake it off, right back to business. He earned it. But this was a gross, sloppy war of attrition, and it takes some level of legitimate steam out of where Malikin was going. 3-division champion, maybe Francis if we can cook up a super fight. Is he homeless man's Fedor? What is he? I mean, you got to run back a rematch, and I'm sure one will do that. And I think you can sell the storyline to some degree of, well, the first one was in the boxing ring. Let's do it in a cage where it belongs. But, dude, that's worst case scenario for Malikin. And it was still a close fight, too, by the way. Like, Malikin at times rallied back, but it was sloppy as shit. I mean, I'm credit to Rug because we didn't give him a big chance, but that had to be worst case scenario for, like, he just beat the face of the franchise and made him look like a, gassed piece of shit at times.
Well, this is why I thought it was kind of interesting, because when Rug beat Buchecha, who I was high on, I was like, oh, this is a terrible loss for Buchecha. Buchecha submits Amir Ali Akbari on this same card, and Rug beats Anatoly Malikin, the triple champ.
Rematch that.
Well, I'm also just saying to myself, I think Buchecha's done with one. But the point I'm trying to make is, this is what I mean about wins aging or not well. That was a loss for Buchecha, but now you're looking at it, it's like, dude, this guy Rug is made for MMA or bare minimum combat sports because he comes from Senegalese wrestling. Like, a specimen, like perfectly designed to be a modern heavyweight.
How does he have 5-round stamina? How does that man with that body have 5-round stamina and
I'm
a
going
chin?
to guess lax drug testing. We've got a clip here. I want to show you. Is it Long Island Luke? Is it divided into two? The one with him lifting Malikin?
We just got the one with Rug and Malikin, and then the Cade Rotolo one.
Okay, well that wasn't what I wanted. But show me the one where he's celebrating.
Get him a sponsor on those shorts, please.
Dude, they're just beating his ass.
Dude, that's a great celebration.
That's
Especially
an amazing
with the
celebration.
confetti coming down.
And if you can, play it one more time, very quickly. I just want at the beginning, if you can here, Long Island. Look at Malikin's face. I mean, his face is fucked up. Anyway, I had a still photo in there of him lifting Malikin in the air. This guy is strong as an ox.
Would you say he's Brock Lesnar with a chin? He's not as explosive by any means.
He's not as big either, but he's got a little of that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. He is a force to be reckoned with.
Well,
I can't
let me
believe
take
I'm
that
saying
back.
that, but I am.
Brock had a chin in the standpoint of he's willing to take a lot of punishment. He just had the worst chin from like one jab could set him into chaos mode.
That's
And
right.
it's,
He had poor bearing.
Yes, but he had dog though. He definitely
had dog. He made up for it with dog.
Arf, yeah.
So just a disaster, although an amazing
It
opportunity
was
here
theater,
for
but it was weird. And then,
Yes.
and then you had the giant belt, which is even on Rug it looked
I know,
jammy.
even on heavyweights, that thing is
Yes.
like a carpet.
Shout out to Ray Flores, who called that fight Friday night.
Yes, he did.
And then was back on Instagram yesterday telling everyone that the Bears should fire all of their coaches. I was like, yes.
Did they lose again?
I think they did because he was pretty pissed on their Long Island
Did
Luke.
the Bears lose?
Yeah, they lost.
Ray is theater on that.
I'm not even mad at the Chicago Bears. Chicago's a great town. I like the Bears, but their fans are so fucking bitter. It's like Arsenal fan TV when they were in the late stage of the what's this fucking face era. Anyway, who was the coach of Arsenal that everyone wanted out?
Yeah, no one really watches soccer.
Arsene Wenger. Arsene Wenger. All right. Before we move on from one, very quickly, Cade Ruotolo.
Dude, he looks awesome.
Tell the folks how impressive this was, getting to the point you described, a club and sub submission in the very first round.
Yeah, what was it against Ahmed Mutajaba?
Yeah, Mutaba, or however you say his
from
name.
Pakistan. Yeah, dude. So you know he's the submission specialist. You know he's making the move, his second pro MMA fight. So seeing him get to the ground and ultimately get a submission, you're not shocked, especially in less than a couple of minutes. But it was the stand-up that set it up, and obviously particularly that right-hand delayed bomb that he landed. It looks so fluid, confident. Even it's rare sometimes that a post-fight interview just like sells you even more on who this guy is or who this fighter is and where they're going. Luke, I felt that way. Like he was just charismatic in the post-fight interview, confident. He's ready to do big things. Dude, if I'm one and you know things aren't going great at the moment, it seems, Luke, you got to put a rocket ship on this guy. Like from what he can do on the grappling side, obvious, but he looks like he's ready. Am I wrong, Luke? I mean, he looks like he's ready to take on some guys with a pulse and a background here.
What did I say on Friday's show? He looks like the kind of jiu-jitsu guy whose game is perfect for MMA.
Yes.
And then on top of it, for him to like walk the guy down, throw the overhand punch, hit him, and then finish him off with a sub. Dude, if you're hurt against a guy like Cade Ruotolo, it is motherfucking curtains for you.
Damn.
You will not
Do
make
we have
it.
footage of something from
We don't. However, he was asked following the fight what kind of smoke he wants, given like how good he is and where things could go. This was his answer.
แล้วก็มีความน่าตื่นเต้นมากขึ้นอยากจะถามครับตัวของเขาเองนั้นพร้อมหรือยังครับที่จะเจอกับคริสเตียนลีก
A lot of tie there.
Yeah, I'm a very ambitious person, you know, so I like the sound of it for sure. You know, that being said, it's only my second MMA fight, right? So, you know, go straight to the belt. You know, there's a massive opportunity. You know, there's obviously a big step up as well. But, you know, personally, you know, I'm down. But I know my coaches, my team, everyone around me is going to be saying, you know, do it smart, get the experience in. You know, that's the top of the mountain in MMA, right? So might as well enjoy it as well.
I think they wanted him with a fight against Christian Lee.
Oh.
And he was like, you know, I would take it, but
let me get
but
there
I mean,
first.
This guy, I am so rarely hyped on a BJJ guy getting to MMA these days. Count me in as legit hyped for
He
Cade
jumped through my
Ruotolo.
screen. I'm telling you, I was just like, oh shit. Did you watch this Long Island Luke? Are we talking smoke here?
No, I was out Friday night. I caught the main event. I didn't catch this. So.
Oh, disappointed
You're
in
a
you.
fucking
I thought you
loser.
were a hardcore dude. I mean,
I was watching on my phone at the bar, but I only caught the main event.
that deserved
What were you
5 points.
drinking?
Bud Light.
Ugh,
Dude, you're not surprised at all by that.
I'm really not.
That
I
guy
mean,
is salt of the earth, Bud Light.
It's like, what? Hey, give me the most uninteresting drink you have. How about that Bud Light? All right,
Long
PC.
Island Luke, you're gonna take this? I mean,
I can't even deny it, dude. I love it. I can't.
You and Kid Rock. All right. Last but not least, BC, topic number 5. And this one I'm actually really, really interested in. So, Matchroom Boxing got back to DAZN over the weekend. They went to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they had kind of like a co-feature. In the co-main, Bam Rodriguez gets the win over Patrick Guevara. We'll talk about him in just a second. In the main event, Jaron Boots Ennis does get the win. And if you look at the scores, the lowest of them, or at least the narrowest of them, was a 116-110 scorecard. He got a pretty wide decision win again in a rematch against Karan Chukadzan. But, BC, he was not impressive. This was not or I should say at a bare minimum, people have questions and concerns after this.
Yes.
Now, Chukadzan fought differently. In the first fight, when we were together on Showtime, he literally ran the entire time. He took it 2 boots this time.
He had a chin and a half on him.
So
Holy
let me
crap.
ask the question this way. Is Boots overrated, or did he have a mediocre performance just this one time, or are expectations of him too high after what we saw?
I mean, God, it's a little piece of all of those in a lot of ways. He's trending toward overrated just because of the unfortunate nature of where he's been. A big-ish name and a champion in the last few fights, but completely unable to consistently get the right kind of competition that would not only allow him to take next steps in his career, but would allow us to find out exactly who he is beyond what we've already seen from the flash and the craft and the creativity and everything about him, which screams 2.0 fighter of the future. But the thing is, that's all still true. And a big problem with this, in my opinion, is the bad PR that he himself put on himself. Luke, you had to have heard that post-fight interview where he said some things that made it look heavy on excuses and said, well, this is what happened when I'm going to fight a low-profile guy and, you don't get up for it. Fans don't want to hear that. Fans, that makes you look bad to say stuff like that. It might be partially true. I actually think it might actually be strongly true, but that's not a good thing to say. There was a few things of that idea, like, put me in there with somebody with a pulse and you'll see. But here's the deal. Entertainment-wise, we lucked out. The first fight was a negative in every way. 120 to 108 in all 3 scorecards and a boo fest. This guy, Karen, came to fight, and he leaned on his chin, and he made this a fight. Boots looked spectacular at times. You got the full Boots offensive experience in the first 2/3 of this fight. Scored a knockdown. Looked like he was close to getting him out of there. Hurt him a bunch of times. Here became the problem. Boots made this fight because Boots was in a crossroads situation ahead of this fight. It was either give up your belt and officially go to 154 or take this completely unnecessary fight by the IBF in hopes that we can land a welterweight title unification fight after this. So in that regard, Boots put all the pressure on himself to get the knockout, no matter what. So he at least could best what happened in the first time around because shutting that man out wasn't enough. People did not like that fight. But Luke, in the second half, he got way too focused on that. And his corner was also part of the problem. His father, Bozy, and them were, and I get what they're coming from, but they were just like, go out there and finish him already. That was basically the tone they set. So Boots tried too hard to make that magic happen against a guy who came in, publicly said this week, although no one paid attention, that he was embarrassed by his performance the first time around. So he was going to lean on his Ukrainian heritage, and he brought up the war a lot. And what we missed was a determined guy came in that ring, and a determined guy down the stretch, to credit Karen Chukadzan. He lit up Boots. Like Boots' defense, we saw major holes in it in the second half. Boots got lit up far more than what we're used to. And at times he looked a little lost. I think ultimately that's where Boots is at in his career right now, a little lost. He's got to pick the right lane business-wise of what's the most reasonable and understandable big fight he can get. But I don't think this result hurts him, even though I think he put himself in bad PR, because what's been Boots' biggest problem? Getting people to fight him. Luke, this is the greatest advertisement for him potentially not being all he actually has been sold to be. I think this is going to allow some of these fights to start to happen. I actually like that tweet that Bud Crawford, who is a future potential opponent for Boots,
let's put that on the screen if we can, Long Island.
An encouraging tweet for him to say, where he said, at Jerron Ennis, I didn't see the fight, but I heard about it, I think is what he's trying to say. Stay focused and keep working on your craft. Every night's not going to be the same. Never get too comfortable in this game. If you're trying to get to the mecca of the sport, stay on your mission, because it takes is one slip up. That was like half encouragement from Bud, big brother, and also like, hey, why don't you come up here on my level? Like, you're gonna have to put your pieces together. But I think what Bud's saying there is true. Like, Boots is still the goods. He's not perfect. There's things he has to fix, and the defense is one of them, especially when he's really going for it like he was in the second half of that fight. But maybe he didn't. It's not like we saw him knocked down or getting stumbling around. Maybe he felt like he could take that risk in that moment. Maybe he knew that after, they did 24 rounds with Chukadzin, maybe he knew he could handle that power. I'm not trying to excuse away what Boots did. Boots showed us that he's not fully there and needs to sharpen it. But it makes sense because he's 27 and hasn't had a significant fight in a while. I'm just saying this result is going to get people to be more willing to fight him. And I think him choosing to take this fight means that they want to unify. So hopefully he's going to get a chance against one of these welterweight champions to do it. But if the chance that he gets is instead 154 or Virgil Ortiz Jr., which if you listen to Oscar and Eddie Hearn, they want to do this Golden Boy versus Matchroom thing, then they got to pick a lane and they got to go hard after it. And they do have some work to do, but I'm not here to like say doomsday is coming. I didn't necessarily see that. I saw a lot of people say that. Ryan Garcia's like, I'm going to knock you out now. You just proved why. What do you think about that? I tend to protect these young boxers at times, but I think I saw enough to know, yeah, you got to do that a little bit. But he was in a tough spot where he knew KO or nothing, or he was going to get booed and talked bad about anyway. So I'm not necessarily mad at him for trying for the knockout and it not going perfectly. He still got a wide dominant win in a lot of ways.
I think that this win was, there are ways in which, to the point that you raise, it could be a long-term thing for him that is just fine. But I actually think this win for him was bad in a lot of important respects. Shouts, Sean Zattel.
Love him. Yeah.
He's great. I did see his post-fight reaction, and I thought it was really, really smart. He kind of crystallized something that had been kind of circulating in my head, but I couldn't formulate. And basically, he was like, if you just look at who Boots was when he was beating the Custio Claytons and the Sergey Lipinets of the world, he was doing the exact same thing. He was being defensively lax in this way. And if you actually go back and look in both those fights, certainly the Lipinets fight, less so the Clayton fight, because I don't think it was very long. But in the Lipinets fight, he was getting tagged a little bit. It just didn't matter because he eventually closed the show, with relative quickness. Excuse me. And there was a lot of consternation, as you pointed out, about his corner being like, not giving him technical advice, just getting him out of there. But the reason, why all of these things are relevant and why I'm bringing them up is he learned that you can just fight that way. If you've got extra level ability, you can kind of coast on that. You can kind of just ignore your fundamentals because eventually you are going to get him out of there. Eventually you are just going to wallop him, right? You are going to put him away. But you couldn't put away Chukadzan. He actually stayed there round after round. He did drop him in the fifth, but round after round. And the point I'm trying to make is, dude, he was landing between the punches of Boots, where Boots is wide open. And if you go back and watch too, Boots will shoot the jab and then the hand just lowers and then he slowly brings it up. These are openings that you see on camera and you think to yourself, oh, well, it doesn't matter because he's really good. But Chukadzan saw that and was like, I'm going to hit that. So that's one point I'm trying to make. I'm not saying, BC, at 32 fights at 27 years old, that his development is fucked. I am going to say it's a little off track.
Well, here's what I'll say about it. If I'm going to make the argument, and I did, and I believe it, that marketing-wise and him getting better fights is actually a plus in the end, I think this is also a plus in the end if you take the John Kavanaugh route and look at it as, there's no losses, just learning lessons. I think what Boots benefits here is he can learn a big lesson here in a win, and a relatively wide one. Yes, where he took maybe unnecessary damage late going for risks. But Luca, here's the biggest lesson that he needs to learn. And you tell me if you think, that him and his team are going to view it this way, and they should. His biggest fights will be at 154. We all know that. He knows that. Mm-hmm. It might be soon. It might be his next fight for all we know. I think that this proved against a determined guy with a chin in Chukadzan who overachieved in terms of his punch resistance here, that maybe Boots doesn't have that one big knockout punch. That he's a fantastic, sensational guy, and when he has you hurt, he puts together vicious and exciting combinations. But maybe he's not that one punch guy. Maybe at 154, they're going to need to be more of a boxer. So why not learn this lesson now of when I throw my A game and I throw everything at them and they don't go away? Well, then how do I finish that fight the best possible way? What he did in this case is the wrong way. He took a lot of chances and went for a knockout that ultimately didn't happen, and now people are on shows talking bad about him. If he can learn this lesson, though, and I think you're going to learn that in the ring no matter what, whether, you know what I mean, against the tough 154s with chins, he's got to have an ability, once he realizes he can't get the guy out of there, to adjust to a boxing strategy that will still be as wide and dominant, where he can control rounds, land the bigger punches, and not get hit. Because he's going to find more chins like that
against Murtazalia.
No, these guys will not back down, and they'll make him, they'll knock him out. So this is the big lesson that they have to learn right now. So I don't mean to overly, play up the situation, be like, don't worry, nothing to see here, he'll be fine. I'm saying they need to learn that lesson. Hopefully they will after that. They know how ultimately what really happened in that ring. So
the crowd was quiet at the end of the 12th too.
Sure. I mean, Chukadzan was rallying back in those final couple rounds and was landing bombs. And
we do have him talking about Boots potentially going to 154 in a post-fight comment. Let's see what he says.
Sounds like you're ready to get out of 147. No, I mean, if we can get one of these guys, man, stop playing, let's make it happen. But if not, man, 54, here I come.
I don't think it was the best interview from him. I thought
it was not very great. But what he's saying is, yeah, if we can unify this title, I'll fight guys at 47. But if not, I do think that cut to 47.
Dude, he mentioned it at the beginning of that interview. He almost blamed away the performance on the cut.
The cut is substantial for him.
I agree with that. So here's the deal. I know they want a unification. I know that all fighters want that. You want to become a unified champion, gain another belt. But the other guys with belts aren't like necessarily superstars at this moment that are going to draw big paydays, right? You know what I mean? If him, Mario Barrios, Amon Staniotis, Brian Norman Jr., who's on the rise for sure, but like those fights aren't defining fights anyway. Go to 54 where you won't be compromised. And like we just talked about, he's got to make those adjustments and learn how to fight against durable guys who are going to be there anyway. He's got to be able to adjust his game and be able to outbox them down the stretch like that. And I think this was more of him just trying too hard. There's a lot of lessons they can learn, but maybe now is the time to go to 54 and figure this out, because that's where the big money fights are. That's where the big challenges are for him. So I'm always for anyone fighting closer to their weight. I think we just need to also realize that I don't think he's going to get big stoppages at that level. He's got such physical attributes. He's got a great mind for how him and his dad approach the game plan, and offensively how they surround you and the footwork. I mean, everything about it is next level. Focus on that and realize that you're going to be in for some tough fights at that level.
He's learned how to fight with poor defensive habits.
Yes.
And if he doesn't fix that as he moves up, it will cost him dearly.
I agree with you, because they're going to find out that, but that's the adjustment they have to make after this fight. How quickly they can do that will define their future, obviously, but I'm not blind to the question marks that puts on him and his brand and all of that and his stock, if you will, right? But now we're going to find, now is the moment we're going to find out how good he is.
Hilariously, Blair Cobbs tried to insert himself as a potential opponent for Jaron Ennis, and Eddie Hearn wanted none of this. Let's see.
Look, we know the two options that you want to pick, but there's still a third option. That third option is the most exciting man in boxing, Blair Flair, fighting Jaron Boots Ennis in a major hit in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to leave the messages to the media, but one thing I will say is I like you, Blair. I think you're a very funny guy.
I will go viral again.
Yeah, and I do think you can fight, but we got to move on to that next level now because...
Okay, so you saying you want to move on to the next level, but I'm yet still the only fighter in the welterweight division that actually fought a major name. So why not make this fight happen?
Because we want either a major name or...
A major name is Blair the Flair.
No, I'm afraid you're not.
Let's see how.
No,
how do you say?
You're definitely...
When's the last time somebody knocked a tooth out from Broner?
It doesn't matter. Adrian Broner...
When's the last time he went viral on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter?
Adrian Broner is shot to pieces, right? Let me tell you one thing now. Well, I'd say take the microphone off you. I think you're a lovely guy. We're moving. I've got a good fight for you. Karen Chudazian.
Did I not get enough? Did I not do enough?
No, absolutely not. You've never done enough in your career to fight Jaron Ennis. Because who have you beaten?
How many ex-champions did you guys fight?
Blair.
No,
next.
How many ex-champions you have?
Blair, you've never, you do not have a, stop it. You do not have a, you do not have, he fought Chris Algieri, he's a former world champion. By the way, we're going to move on to the media. It was great chatting to you. Every home should have one.
Thank you, Blair.
Right.
Oh, wow. Damn. Wild stuff there from Eddie. Do you think there's any truth though in the thing that Jaron did say in that in the initial post-fight interview with Mannix, where he said about the level of competition and raising him up? It's a horrible excuse to put out there.
I think it is. I think the fact that he has not been able to get the fights at the appropriate time in his career that
challenge
he needs to
him
has also affected his development.
And he knows that.
The two are connected.
And he knows that and is voicing that. So I guess this is my long way of saying I think he should go into a hard fight. I think he should move up to 54 where the challenges will be bigger. And do you think some of those defensive holes that we saw in a fight where he was actively trying to create any situation to get the guy out of there, do you think those go away when he respects the power of a crossroad?
I hope. Very quickly, if we can.
Yeah.
Bam Rodriguez. Co-main event.
He makes it look so easy.
He is. I was thinking about this, and I put up a little thing on my Instagram stories. If you are, so I remember when I was years ago working at MMA fighting, I was thinking like watching Pacquiao, and I remember at the time, you guys might not remember this, but Dana White was like a big Manny Pacquiao fan.
Yes.
And when Pacquiao was in his prime, like the guy that beat Hatton, the guy that beat De La Hoya, right? I'm getting that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
When he beat those guys, he had a machine gun style of offense. Like when he moved downhill on you, it was fucking over. And it was like so easy for MMA fans to get behind that guy, which is why Floyd was also, defensive and slick.
Yeah, most people don't throw successive 5-punch combinations
all the time.
Yeah.
And the guy moved up from 107 or whatever it was to get to, to the 140s. And so the point I wanted to make was I was going to wait to see who the inheritor was of the most friendly boxing style for MMA fans. It's Bam Rodriguez. He is all action, move forward, but technical, slick, smart, easy to like.
Efficient as shit.
He's super efficient. He is a wizard. What can you say about this win? First guy to stop Patrick Guevara.
Yeah, so Guevara, by the way, 35-year-old former champion in a different weight class, was just beat Andrew Maloney by split decision, just had a big win on the road. And he goes in there and just how easy did he make it look? He connected on 73% of his power shots.
It's insane.
For 2.5 rounds. That's insane. It's something where okay, this is a weird comparison. Do you remember Vince Young's rookie year with the Titans? Where
it was good, right?
It was very good.
Yeah.
He had really good, respectable rookie numbers. He was rallying them to big wins. I think they made the playoffs, right? Didn't they sneak in?
Remember.
I know he made the Pro Bowl. When he ran through defenses, it looked like he was just jogging. He just glides through. There's something visually when you watch Bam. It looks very simple what he's doing and coming and setting up. It's just that everything lands cleanly, fast, and powerful, and just cleans up. And he takes his time, as do most great fighters, to download the data and take a picture and figure it out. But once he starts moving in and with that confidence, dude, his footwork is so good. He almost has no business, a 24-year-old from San Antonio who has the cool tats and the big following. You're just like, oh, he's an all-action brawler. He has no business being this great technically, but he goes in there and just makes it look like there's no defense in front of him, that he's just going to weave right in and just nail everything at the right moment with the right technique, and he's a dog and he wants to be great. There's nothing I can say negative right now about Jesse Rodriguez.
He stole the show.
Absolutely did. The crowd was ramped up in there for him too. So good move by Matchroom Sport, knowing that they had a main event that was going to be hard to sell, to pair with this, and he absolutely delivered. And now we're literally only talking about what's next for him, either 37-year-old Chocolatito in a, monumental passing of the torch fight, or how much longer until Inoue. I mean, he's actually voicing that, I could see myself at 126 and 130 down the road, and I'm ready for Inoue. Holy shit.
He's the guy.
And it's not that he's been perfect all the way. You can watch some of his fights on the way up, and he had to learn certain things.
He got dropped in the one before this.
For sure. But when he's flowing, when he's in that flow state, there are a few that are just it's just perfection.
And he's just 24. He's just 24. He has time and will get better from
and
here.
He dropped out of school in the 7th grade and was homeschooling, get out of here, and then was a student of the craft.
That's it. Incredible to watch. Those are our top 5 topics.
Oh,
right
don't
there.
you dare forget Keyshawn Davis.
Oh, I did forget Keyshawn Davis. Why don't you tell us very quickly about what happened?
Okay, so we had the top-ranked card in Norfolk on Friday night. It was a showcase of, Pernell Whitaker's legacy in a lot of ways, with the family passing the torch of that to the Davis family. All 3 brothers fought on the card. And by the way, the youngest brother, Keon, making his debut. He's a 6'3" welterweight, although this fight was at 154. Yeah, he looked to be the goods for the future. But what Keyshawn Davis did, and we're talking about the ease, the badass ease in which he went in there against Gustavo Lemos, who had missed weight by an atrocious, 6.4 pounds, something like that?
An insane amount.
Barely made the rehydration limit the next morning, and then got on the scale before the fight and was 155 for a lightweight bout. So you're basically seeing Keyshawn, who the card was built around, him and his family helped sell out the 10,000 plus seats against a junior middleweight, and he walked through with, can I say it on this show? Fucking ease, and looked like a monster. Even though Keyshawn in reality is a very good offensive boxer who can do a little bit of everything, dude, he looked like a damn monster in there, putting together those power shots and dropping Lemos a couple times, and then just that left uppercut, which, as Tim Bradley on the broadcast rightfully said, it was unnecessary and nasty the way he threw that one extra punch in. To seize the moment when you're a growing star and knock it out of the park that well, that perfectly, even in a compromised-ish situation against a guy who purposely seemed to miss weight, and then you go knock knock, Gervonta afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Chef's kiss, dude. Like that's a star. That 25-year-old. I don't want to say I was slow because we all knew about him coming out of the Olympics and everything, but to really catch up to how good he is. Sometimes guys fool us because they're flashy, and then sometimes it just sort of happens at the right time where you go, holy shit, that's guy's close to a damn finished product. Dude, he's going to be a big time player from here on out. Did there anything that, I mean, did you, I mean, I feel like I'm having Ilya Topuria moments watching him,
no,
you know?
I will tell you that, like, that Tidewater region, I've said it before, it's hard to explain unless you've ever been down there, but they love their athletes in a very unique way. And why do boxers go home? Right? Why do they go to their hometowns? Okay, they can sell a lot. That's true. But it's not like you're going to make a killing. There was a 10,000 arena. It's a smaller arena.
Sure.
It's not about that. It's because when you see them in their local community, that's the first time you see another side of them. And I really felt like I understood who Keyshawn Davis was better after seeing the high school marching band come out and how proud he was of Norfolk and the connection to Pernell Whitaker. Like, everything began to get connected.
And his rough childhood, which I didn't even know anything about.
All those guys. I mean, any kind of athlete who comes out of there has some kind of hard scrabble story. It's a tough area. But I just felt like they pieced together parts of his personality in ways that, or his story in his life. I found myself now being so much more invested in the Keyshawn Davis story. Yeah, because he kicked the guy's ass, of course. That is first and foremost. But all the other pieces, BC, they worked. It all
Bomac
worked.
in the corner, too.
Bomac eating Cheetos back there.
Damn.
Big as shit.
And then, you see the influence of Shakur Stevenson, which means he's also getting sparring time with Terrence Crawford. So that sort of silo over there of fighters in the Bomac, Bud system there, that's only iron sharpening iron on top of somebody who's already, as you can see, a fantastic talent. And you saw, the love and concern for his brothers. He was ringside when he could be for his brothers' fights on the same night. Dude, this was a coming out party for, what do they call themselves? DB3?
DB3, I think.
It was a coming out party, but quickly, because we both love him, Abdullah Mason.
Oof.
Oh, my God.
Round of the year.
Gets dropped twice. Again, did you see the dude's haircut that dropped him?
He had the thing in the back,
The
right?
full, back of the head hair, but nothing else?
Listen, I got to say, young men's hair, I'm not cool. I don't have anything cool. I don't do anything cool. But young men's haircuts today, y'all look like fucking morons. I don't know what you're doing. You look terrible. Okay.
Anyway, in those two knockdowns, he had a knockdown between those two. So there was 3 knockdowns in that first round, and then Mason would go on to finish him. And then him and his dad in the corner afterwards were like, prospect of the year, 5 wins, all by knockout. He's still the goods, but that's a learning lesson in that fight, Luke. No question
about it. But there was a bunch to happen this weekend.
Yeah.
So there you go. There are our 5 topics. With that in mind, BC, let's go to the point where the viewers, the listeners, get to ask us questions.
Oh, yeah.
It's time for DMs from the Diggity Dome.
Disgusting.
All right. This is from Fuzzy Dunlop _1. After the milestone of 100 UFC fight nights, just how anticlimactic and half-assed we didn't pick this. Was this Saturday's event disappointing? IMO, in my opinion. What do you think, BC?
It felt dead in there. I was actually, to be fair,
there were some fans there.
Even though they got a great fight for it, I was disappointed when it was the 25th anniversary show in 2018, and they in Denver,
Colorado.
Yeah, and they did like a fight night, and they did a couple bells and whistles. They had like the old graphics at one point,
the old sound.
But like it wasn't like Hoist Gracie and everybody sitting in the front row. It wasn't. It didn't feel like that. Like a big celebration. Then they had that great.
This
main
was
event.
on par with Bellator 100, and people asked Bjorn Rebney at the time, like, "Hey, you got to do anything special for Bellator 100?" And in classic Bjorn Rebney fashion, he was like, "No, I'm not. I'm going to do nothing special."
This is the state of the fight night cards. This card. It wasn't awful. It was good enough to lead the show and talk about it.
There was 2 20-minute intermissions in this one because the fights were going so quickly.
And also a couple fights fell apart last minute.
That's also true.
So,
I was going to say this, though. Of course, the fights are, it's like the lowest priority of what they do, right? That's what it is. The lowest
They actually
priority.
care about Dana White Contender Series. It
Much
seems
more.
Way more.
Much more. So I was going to say this. We're hearing a lot of talk about the UFC breaking up their broadcast deal. Some people will get this. Some people will get that. Who's going to get this? And how do you sell that to them? It's like, this is the lowest fucking shit we do.
Fight Pass. Keep it on Fight Pass.
Keep it on Fight Pass? Okay, but then you're not making any money. I mean, will someone pay for it? I guess somebody will
pay for it.
They used to do those Fight Pass exclusive cards back in the
but
Fox
they'll get more money on a TV channel wanting to get in on the UFC. And you can, look, even with what I thought was a really shitty year for Fight Night cards and main events in general,
they were bad.
You still have enough names sprinkled in throughout where I think if you're a TV network, and especially if you're not, day-to-day hardcore fan, then I don't think they're gonna have a problem selling it. I mean, that's almost the problem of where we are right now, and it's comparable to where WWE was during some hard years in modern history too, where they're making money hand over fist in every possible financial category, that it became hard to be that fan/journalist podcaster who'd get mad at their creative directions, which were constantly going nowhere and were just insulting to the fans. But then you're like, why should they care? They're making money. UFC's in that same boat in a lot of ways right now. Dude, they're going to make killings on this TV deal.
I think if they improve the Apex, which there's been talk about them doing, expanding it, adding more seating, like we saw for the WWE NXT event. I don't remember which one it was, but I saw the screenshots. I was fucking blown away. If you do that and you get, a little bit more emphasis put on it, I think you can definitely sell it and you'll do well with it.
About it. They'll be fine.
From J Beebs 3000, Justin Bieber. Who looked more spectacular this weekend on the boxing, Keyshawn or Bam?
I think Keyshawn, given the circumstances, even though Bam was in there against a tougher opponent, I think the circumstances of Keyshawn being in the main event and his opponent being overweight. And I mean, Bam was spectacular, but Bam's already in the pound for pound top 10, right? Like Bam's already at 24.
Keyshawn had a bigger breakout moment.
For sure.
This because he was headlining and they had the whole Norfolk thing going on. I felt like this was like a bigger occasion for him.
Yes.
Even though Bam looked like $1 million.
What do you make of the people that say on the Gervonta call out, Keyshawn knows damn well that those promoters aren't putting that fight together anytime soon?
Closed mouth don't get fed.
That's what I'm saying.
Closed mouth don't get fed.
I mean, let's make two networks work together. Let's get those type of fights. But do you think
also, if the fighters want it, fights can be made.
But he's only 12-0. Do you think he's ready to fight Tank?
No, I think Tank would fuck him up. But I think it'd be fun to see,
They want smoke. The young fighters want the smoke right now.
They want that fucking smoke. I love it. From Eric Bolden. What is a more exciting fight for, I'm assuming he means Charles Oliveira, if he wins, BC, Max Holloway for the BMF or a rematch with Islam? Now listen to what he said. What's a more exciting fight?
And given that it's Oliveira, any fight can be insanely exciting.
A fight with Max would also be a rematch.
Yeah, I want the Max fight. A lot of people do. It would be a rematch, but it's at such a different time in their careers and their circumstances at the moment. It would be a number one contender fight in a lot of ways with both guys. Like, let's not forget that Max did fight Gaethje before the loss and knocked him out. So, yeah, but, if you get the title opportunity, it's not that he was...
Sorry, I don't think beating Chandler after losing to Saryukian entitles you to fight Islam. I don't think that.
If you're who? If you're Charles?
Yeah.
So you don't believe that... Interesting.
Michael Chandler's been out. By the way,
so
on this card,
yeah,
John Jones, Stipe, and Chandler. These are the three fighters who have the most, in terms of like 1, 2, and 3, who has the longest existing layoffs on the UFC roster.
Yeah.
It's Stipe, Jones, and Chandler. You mean to tell me if Oliveira, after losing to Saryukian at 300, beats him, he gets a title shot? Get the fuck out of here.
No. I don't know where you got that from. I said that. I
said
it would be a number one contender going in next.
Islam
so you're saying that justifies it. Yeah. But just the same, I love the storyline of that. Oliveira basically said, look at all my fights in a row. The only bad one was Islam, and I was just off. He blames on himself. I was just off that night and says that was like an aberration. See what I can do in the rematch. If he earns his way back there, that's going to be a hellacious fight just the same.
I think the answer is Max Holloway for the BMF.
It is, but you'd love to see the rematch for the title if he gets there against
I think Islam smokes him.
Oh, yeah. You don't think it's a fight?
I think he does better than he did the first time.
Yes.
I don't think it matters.
I think he takes more chances and makes Islam fight after seeing Dustin.
You take chances against Islam, you end up in bad places.
True, but do you think even though it takes a special person to do what Dustin did to kind of rally back in a sense in the late rounds and hurt him, don't you think that is giving people confidence that like this indestructible force, if you stand with him and try to go through him at the right time in the right moment, yeah, you could end up getting getting taken, but you get taken anyway against that guy.
Again, he's not as bad, but he's got a little bit of that Rainier de Ritter where I just lose my balance a lot because I'm a guard player thing. I think it's an easier pull for Islam.
Okay, I'm with you.
All right, I don't have my fucking glasses. From Fisher Aiden.
Yeah.
Which UFC fighter of today would you not you of liked. Would you have liked to have seen fight in Pride?
What about Poatan going through that run that like Shogun
The answer
did,
is Poatan.
Yeah.
Times a billion.
Yeah.
I mean, all those guys he could have fought in all those weight classes. By the way, the Japanese would have had no problem having him fight Mark Hunt.
I mean, Francis in Pride would have been fun.
Francis in Pride would have also been fun. I mean, there's a lot of good answers you can give, but I really feel like after the year he's had, Poatan, there's just so many fun permutations against Arona and Rampage and like, oh my God, you could have done a million things with that guy.
Hell yeah.
The answer is him.
Hey, good questions this week, these people, right?
Yeah, good questions. All right, last but not least for my blind ass, Sticks plays time.
Probably something gross involving children.
Just about masturbating, yeah.
Oh, God. What?
Himself, I mean.
Yeah.
What is your favorite, with a U, snack to make after downing a few Delta 8s?
Don't the Euros use the U on the favorite? Isn't that
Or Canadians.
Okay. So, Luke, what's your go-to munchie snack?
You're going to laugh at me.
But he said make. Does that mean we have to make
Okay,
them?
make. I'll make a snack.
Okay,
this
make
one's,
a
this
snack
one's
for
easy.
me.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah, but that's like so basic.
That's what
I mean, my
like.
answer was going to be like great cereal. You know what I mean? Like, if you're like, you got a box of something.
Well, why don't we
like,
go to the fucking expert here, Miss
Yeah,
Captain
this-
Bongwater over
yeah.
there?
Well, I was gonna say I don't really get the munchies like that, but good call on the
What?
cereal, BC.
Is he not a lot? What is that? The
late night-
Australian
How
side
the
of you?
fuck do you smoke as much weed as you do and you don't get the munchies?
You just answered your own question in the question. I smoke it too much. I just don't get the munchies anymore.
Wow.
I've never gotten
That
so
means
high
he's
that I
real
lost
high.
hunger.
Yeah, that means that he's like way higher than.
Bro, are you going into comas? How high are you getting?
He does have that Tyson
I
piece.
just get high and drink a lot of coffee, and then it mellows me out.
Wow.
No, PBJ. PBJ is my go-to.
If he dies on air, we should would we have a ceremony during the show for him?
We should fucking smoke his ashes.
Yeah.
That's what we should do. Cremate him and smoke his ashes. We'll get high as shit up in here.
Yes, thank you.
All right, that is it for anything serious on this show.
Oh wow, that's a great
Time
setup.
for BC's feces.
This is what I did on Sunday, guys. I scoured the globe for the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, the ugly in the world of combat sports and beyond. We call this BC's feces. Hooah! Hey, lots of Boney on the timeline this weekend. John Jones
very chatty.
was cage side at Apex 100, donning the Fight Nerds glasses
God.
and cheering on Prates.
He wants so badly to be adored.
One
and,
of the
part
members came to him and gave the glasses.
I understand, but also he's trying to be like elder statesman.
Dude, they should just
John.
continue to kiss his ass so that he'll take the fights that will define the sport coming up. Okay,
If you know what, if that will work, I'm okay with it.
that's
but I
why
have a
Dana's
feeling
doing.
it's not
Dana's
gonna
smarter
work.
than all of us, apparently. John
He
also
doesn't like books. He doesn't read.
Probably
Remember
not.
that? I don't like books. I don't read.
John also, after the fight night ended, entered the cage. Remember, we haven't seen him in the cage much. He hasn't been in there much, Luke, in the last 8 years, right? Like once, I think. I mean, what the hell? But Boney was getting ready. Seriously, I obviously, all this talk about, it's making it tough, the Aspinall talk, but I have a lot of respect for John at this age, still being at this level and being where he is.
I think
and
mine's a little
the
questionable.
injuries. Like, there's a lot of bullshit that comes with the John Jones experience, but what he's accomplished and who he still is physically and mentally in there, I have so much respect for.
I have respect for what he did at light heavyweight. I saw it from beginning to end. It was as good as fighting gets. I have become more and more jaded over time with his heavyweight pursuit.
All right. Well, transitioning from John and Connor here, Luke, you don't watch pro wrestling these days, but there's a new wrestler that may become your favorite. Remember Kane, the Undertaker's brother, Kane?
A big red
Yeah.
motherfucker, yeah.
They got somebody at Juggalo Championship Wrestling called Cocaine.
Is this real?
Add the H back in. Nope, counter.
Oh, he's out of it. Big throat thrust by Cocaine. He's reaching for something. He's reaching for something.
Cocaine has
He's got a baggie. It's an 8-ball. He's got an 8-ball. And Cocaine goes fucking crazy.
Cocaine is fired up, brother! Coke slam to the depths of hell! Cocaine wins!
Drugs win, drugs war again, Luke.
I think I might like pro wrestling.
Dude, Luke, I was literally just gonna say the same thing. If this is what WWE's like, I might start
Listen,
watching.
you start doing a little more of that, you got a new audience
There
member
you
here
go,
and waiting.
Cocaine in the house. Let's go to the Washington Commanders. Let's check out this fan, Luke.
Shut your fucking mouth!
Oh, big fella. Oh, there he goes. Oh, there he goes. Dude, that barrier saving his fucking life.
Oh, Chub Rock, there's a pepper down. Wow,
Yeah,
that's great.
Dundalk, Maryland's finest right there.
Let's keep it going with the fun here. You ever take a shit in a porta potty?
Sadly, yes.
Did you ever do that at a rally car race?
That'd be a new one. Oh, no. Oh!
And I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but a guy comes bouncing out of that shit house.
He lived?
Yeah, he lived, but that's an embarrassing ending. That's worse than Joseph A. Bank on the third flush. That is That is.
I couldn't believe the size of that dunk.
Okay. Hey, big week for Poetan. Let's check in on Alex Pereira going backstage to meet Roman Reigns at WWE SmackDown.
Shama, I appreciate your body of work. Hell of a run so far.
I appreciate your body.
We're excited for what you're going to do in the future. Shama.
Bring back the cocaine guy. That's boring.
And then Poetan got announced on the broadcast. So, like, thanks a lot to wear the next clothes. He reunited with his tribe in Brazil.
Holy shit.
And if it wasn't scary enough, watch his bow work.
I used to be a bow and arrow guy.
In the Marines?
No, before that.
Interesting stuff right there. Also, he can skateboard, Luke. You want to see an ollie air?
Wow. Pretty good, right?
Yeah,
I don't skateboard, but that seems pretty good.
That huge gun safe behind him there,
You know what I want to see him do? Defend some takedowns. Let's see that.
All right. You in on bike trick failures?
Are the guys white?
Let's see.
E daí que ele é bonito? Eu sei fazer manobra de bike, filho.
No, he's Brazilian.
Oh,
shit! Dude, when they start losing teeth, that's when I start getting interested.
Luke, do you hate it? You hate it more than anyone I know when we set a time to meet and then I'm late meeting at the time.
People typically hate that.
Well, yeah, but you send a text at the time saying here. That's what you do.
Well, I mean, I think being punctual is pretty
Sometimes people
important.
have reasons for being late.
Here she is, 15 minutes late, huh?
Sorry, I had to jerk off.
All right, Luke, it's time for
it's a new America.
Yes, it is.
It's a new time.
MMA fighters in the wild time. Let's catch Robert Whitaker's new merch.
You can't outrun the raper. Oh, the
That was a tough folding of the fabric on the back there that hid that E.
Oh, my
Wow.
God. They couldn't have done a second photo of that? Jesus Christ.
Bloody knuckles. Damn, I don't like that at all. Henry Cejudo was signing autographs, meeting the kids when Mario Bautista ran up on him.
These are great.
You gotta say yes, though. I gotta say yes.
Want me to take your picture? You all
Can
get
I
it?
say something? What? You can't be so damn boring, though.
Over on that
Because
table, got the
nobody's gonna fight you like that. I won't be one. There's a lot. Listen, Olympic champ, flyweight champ, bantamweight champ. What have you done? 2 losses in a row, 7 fight wins. Okay, but look who I lost to. At that time, the guy that was a current champ, and the other guy is now the former champ. Yeah. Are you gonna fucking nut grab? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna sit me against the cage like you did with Aldo? I don't think you'll stay there, but it'll be. I won't stay there. Exactly. I won't stay there. I have a meeting with Hunter, and whatever Hunter wants, we can do it. Whatever Hunter wants. Yeah, whatever Hunter wants, because you know what? I want it all Valley. Of course, there's a lot of people that I want. There's a big ass fucking thing. Take the fight. You haven't done anything.
Yeah, come on.
You haven't done anything.
Anyway, we're stopping.
Olympic champ, flyweight champ.
Luke, do you have any interest in that fight?
0.
That's a low number. All right. Remember that time I tried to pitch for an old guy Dillashaw versus Garbrandt 3 fight? And you're like, I don't even think TJ can raise his arm above his head, right?
I said that exactly, didn't I?
Let's go to the videotape.
Fucked. I can't even.
Oh,
I can't
shit.
do this.
Really?
Holy shit. It doesn't hurt. It just doesn't work.
Just
so,
stuck.
what the fuck? Long story. No, I will not be coming back. Oh, man.
Dude, he just
Did
admitted.
I not fucking call this? And everyone and their brother was like, no, you had to go out there for glory. Well, now the bill is fucking due over his injuries.
Wow.
I'm not trying to be a dick. The only reason I say this with such
Vigor
is because this is the one time I've had to have orthopedic surgery. Dude, your shoulder is complicated and fragile. And if you fuck it up by going out there in a fight against Aljamain Sterling, he should have never been in.
I agree.
Falling out left and right. And now look at the
How does he
consequences.
get
Dude, you're
jacked
fucking
as shit?
crippled.
How does he get jacked as shit if he can't?
He could probably do lateral raises, which
that's
you know what I mean.
right.
He could probably do some
Okay.
degree of that, but like overhead pressing. Can you imagine that? You can't even hang on the.
He
fucking...
was always willing to risk it all and do whatever it took.
Okay, which you appreciate the guts, you appreciate the heart. But
I was
you
talking
gotta
more
be
with
fucking...
PEDs, actually. Just to be fair, I was making that reference. Yeah.
Okay, but you know what I mean?
I love Dillashaw, though.
I know. I just can't stand when people are like, well, you got to defend the fighters when they make really bad decisions about their health because that's who they are. No, you have to tell them there's a certain limit where you're fucking your life up. And now look at this.
Yeah, lesson learned right there. Hey, DC did a Q&A with fans, and it went about as what you can guess here.
For DC, and on a lighter note, how does it feel to be the son of John Jones?
And on a lighter note, fuck you. So yes, I guess we aren't great. We aren't great, and I don't think that we ever have to. I think people need to stop like longing for the perfect happy ending. Guys don't have to do what Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield did. It can be okay to just be okay with us being as we are, and I'm fine with it. So you guys should be too.
If we get to 500K subs on our YouTube channel, then apparently we have to have sex at that point. You know, DC and John should just have their trilogy already and just
just do gay porn.
Yeah, okay.
By the way, did
right.
he have a fan in his other hand?
Oh, like one of those
like cool you off
menopause fans?
Yeah,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Menopause fan. That's so funny. All right.
I know some females, Luke. Let's keep it going here. You said you wanted front row at SeaWorld. Remember we saw front row at Sumo. Watch what happens at this front row at Sumo after Shamu drops a doogie, Luke.
Shamu just shit a big-ass log.
Yeah, and then you're...
Look at the kid's face. Yo, hold this, motherfucker.
Yo, at least we have the trash bags on like at the Gallagher concert.
Hold that shit. Bye. Dude,
God.
Just making people bathe in dookie water is next level disrespect. Hold on. And I want to be clear. Long Island Luke, do you think that did you ever see the documentary Blackfish?
No.
Have you ever seen it, Long Island Luke?
No.
Dude, you watch that shit, it changes your whole perspective about SeaWorld. It's so fucked up what they do. I think that killer whale did it on purpose. Do you?
Oh, to protest the treatment.
Several different kinds of primates throw their feet. Now, it's not just howler monkeys. They throw their feces. How is that any different?
Damn. They throw their feces at G.G. Allen concerts too, but that's a
G.G.
different
Allen
story.
is a different level of primate.
Your art of the week. Are you good at sandcastles, Luke?
Not that great.
Well, are you as good as this guy?
Making the Rizzler of this fat kid?
That's how you sum it up. Wow. Look at the art though. Look at the
we're
crowd.
Costco guys. We're fucking lame as shit.
I mean,
we're Costco guys.
Luke,
My dad's been trying to get famous for 30 years.
Is this art? Are we art, Luke? Is art?
Yo, look at this fat nothing.
Okay. You know, Cumberland. You hear Cumberland Farms now selling 2-piece in a soda.
Jorge Masvidal special would be the 3. Oh,
I think that was only 2 right there.
Game.
Yeah.
Oh, they played the knockout game. My man's just waiting in line for what? Waiting in line for like some scratch offs.
Yeah, some munchies. There you go. Be careful. Everyone ever try to like in public at an airport and you know someone just took a photo of you and you're like, what are they gonna do with it? Masturbate? Yeah. Watch this.
What's fucking? What's fucking?
What's your problem?
Oh, suck a dick up, bitch.
You can wrap it. Thank you so much. Regional MMA move of the week, Luke. Have you ever heard of? It's not a darce necessarily. I think they call it a helicopter choke.
Yeah, it's almost like it's the opposite of a giant swing. But yeah. Dude,
Isn't that
I keep trying to explain to people that's real MMA.
That's
what you see
Cesaro's
in the UFC
finishing
is
move.
not real MMA.
Wow. All right. Hey, it's time for everyone's favorite game, Dicks in the Wild, Luke. You got to look closely in life. Sometimes you'll see them, right?
Okay. I mean, why is he Connor at the fucking Mayweather weigh-in?
Is that a Cannibal Corpse occurrence?
My man has just a very hard pecker right there.
All right. Sometimes even on the golf courses, if you look close enough, Luke.
This can be some. What the fuck is this? Okay. Is she doing that in the frost, like the dew on the grass?
Yes. Let's
and
go.
And then the little jizz trail. You know what, lady?
Let's go to the hot air
Somebody
balloons.
could provide me her number. Let's see. Oh, you got the two balls.
I mean, that does kind of resemble, would you say?
Wow. I mean, the people really.
I mean, even in your dessert, Luke, you got to look closely. You got to be careful.
That's a lot of ball to shaft ratio, but.
It is. Could you go to the next one, Long Island? Come on, keep it moving. There you go. You got to be careful.
It looks like someone smeared shit in it.
I mean, even kids have to be careful. You ever
also not a big fan of the Neapolitan ice cream.
Oh, it's an old class. It's basically it's
a little shitty.
Yeah, I mean it's elementary school bullshit. But even kids, kid friendly people like Barney in the middle of an intersection, Luke. If you look close enough, something's not right there.
Tell you what about Barney? He's got a bit of a pipe on him. That is.
I mean, watch this piece of
old Barney the Impaler.
Let's see this final Dick in the Wild, Luke. You got to look closely. I'm telling you.
Penis.
What do you think so far? Have you seen this shit as like a C-?
It's a B minus.
All right, let's see if Wheel of Fortune can bring us back.
Tavares, right in the butt.
Okay. What was his name? Tavares?
Yeah.
Tavares, buddy, you gotta. I don't think that's for you.
Luke, you ever think about big regrets in your life?
All the time.
Oh, so did this lady too.
Number 1, your question is, what is your biggest mistake?
The biggest beef steak.
Do you? Let me give you some game here. I only see it because it now pops up on my feed. Do you know what people in the, again, I don't want to speak for them, but I've just seen it.
Yes.
Do you know what people in the Hispanic community call overweight women?
No.
Tortas. Torta. Which can be like, if you're in Mexico, it's like a big
I
sandwich.
would
but
guess
it can also
a torta
be a cake.
was like
It can also be a cake. No, like Torta, torta.
Tortas are tremendous.
Well, one way or the other.
Okay.
Tremendously sized.
And finally, Luke, have you seen this infamous Denver Nuggets fan cam yet? It's tremendous. Some happy women, you know?
Yeah, just hanging out.
Yep, just thinking about
nice white ladies.
Yeah, there we go. All right, a little bit.
Oh,
okay.
what the fuck, lady?
Okay, yeah, it's aggressive.
If the producers could find her number for me, I have some questions.
That's the only shit I got. I'm gonna pee my pants here.
That's a solid B.
All right, I'll take a B cup
That's a
any
decent
day.
B.
All right, yeah.
Main card minute. Why don't you plug it so that the folks can know where to go for degenerate gambling?
Get merch.
Main Card Minute. Go to maincardminute.com for merch. We'll be live Friday for Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, and live for the full card Saturday, UFC 309. Join us then.
Dude,
Will you be sober for any part of that broadcast?
Maybe like the first few minutes before I take the first bong hit. Yeah.
You know what podcast has a website already? His. He just said it. Maincardminute.com.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we got YouTube channels and stuff. I mean, it's the same.
I think we have morningkombat.store.
We do. The merch is there. Morningkombat.store. By the way, well, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, morningkombat.store. Come pick up your merch at morningkombat.store. Things like this jacket, things like his hoodie and his hat, and a whole lot more. We're everywhere on social. You can get to us on social.
Oh, you're on YouTube? Yeah.
YouTubes and TikToks and everything in between. There you go. And by the way, I always want to, we didn't mention it at the top. Let's mention it now. morningkombat@gmail.com.
Yes.
We need a graphic for that, Long Island Luke. morningkombat@gmail.com. That still is active. You can send anything you need to.
Except for a shot of your dong, because Mikey does not deserve that.
Somebody sent me they claimed it was their girlfriend's titties. They sent me a picture.
Okay.
Oh my God. Can I tell you about the homeless woman on my train today?
You texted me about her.
There was a homeless woman. I mean, she really needed help. Can I be honest about that? She needed help. She was shoeless, obviously homeless, as well as topless.
You should have stepped in.
Well, she was throwing trash all over the train car.
All right, I would just leave at that point.
So I moved to the other train car.
Was it like that other guy we saw with like the head gash that was screaming
worse,
at? Yeah,
worse.
that was.
She was throwing trash like it was like a hardcore.
Do you know
concert.
that's my least favorite part of coming here? Yeah.
New York City's not perfect. It's got some problems, and homeless titties on the subway.
Okay, I saw
at 10 a.m. is not what I'm looking for. If I can be honest.
I didn't even tell you some things I've seen lately. It's Newark Penn Station level, you know.
Well, one time I was at New York Penn Station. This was 20 years ago, and I was walking with a friend, and we were walking outside, and my friend goes, "Is that an ass?" And I looked over, and it was a man taking a shit right in the street.
Okay, all right.
And that was Newark.
I think it's time to go.
That's a real thing that happened. And I swear to God, my friend goes, "Is that an ass?" That's what I ask every time I look at you. Is that an ass?
Yeah, that is.
There you
hey,
go.
Friday we'll be back, and it's going to be a big one because it's a big weekend.
Are you going to this card live on Saturday?
I don't believe so.
No?
I don't believe.
All right. Well, there you go. There's that. Thanks to all the crew. Thanks to everyone who watched. Thanks to all of you.
Ken. You got to thank Ken.
Yeah, of course, Ken.
You're like, fuck Ken. I like Ken. You know?
He's too high to remember. I mean, who cares? 5 seconds, he'll be forgetting about this whole interaction. All right. For Brian Campbell and our producer who's got a long face over there and just yawned. Look at that. Yawning like an asshole.
Oh, you mean Daniel Snyder's nephew?
Daniel Snyder's nephew. I'm Luke Thomas. That's Brian Campbell. Till next time, we're Morning Kombat. May all of your gains be loyal.